What's good, people? Welcome back to the Onyx Report. Hope you're well. Trying to get it in today. Anyway, it's been a smooth one. So I'm just a little relaxed coming to the end of the semester. Kind of trying to chill a little bit. But anyway, let me get to the exact things that I need to cover. Welcome back to the Onyx Report, where we as Black male justice advocates uplift Black men and boys using critical analysis. Right? So welcome back to the show. Hope everybody is well. And as y'all know, especially on my Wednesday lives, I like to start out by thanking my subscribers for their support. So let me go ahead and do so. Okay, so thank you to the subscribers, and you too can join and support the show if you would like. We urge you to do so, so we can continue to grow the channel. So as I've said before, you can do so. There are multiple membership levels here on YouTube. Just hit the join button right next to the subscribe button. Make sure you've hit the notification bell so you get notification when we drop a video, especially now that I do Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday. I do kind of a live drop. It's a bit random in terms of the times, usually after 5 p.m. Pacific, but either way, hit the notification bell so you're there. You can hit the join button and identify what level of membership you're interested in, or you can go to Patreon and there are levels of membership there. You can also support the Institute for Black Male Studies, and there is a new option to support both the Institute for Black Male Studies and the Onyx Report there on Patreon. So check that out. You can see the link there, patreon.com/THJohnson. So support the show if you will. Get this off here. Kind of get it together. Kind of a little all over, but let me start by thanking some of the listeners. What's up? I'm listening. Kiel, what's going on? Roaring Sun, what's happening? Heru, what's up, Donnie? Micah, what's going on, man? Got Ghetto User in the house, Clutch and Stick. What's happening? Right, Carl, Black Mind, what's up? And Black Mind, it's the track you're hearing now was actually made by Green Gorilla. And that's to not only let you know that the brother is quite talented, but you can as well contact him about a custom made theme song, if you will. So you can reach out to Green Gorilla, go to his YouTube page and try and communicate with him there. And that's something you can contract him with. So the brother is fiercely talented, so look into that and support the Green Gorilla channel. If you haven't watched it, you can go there and check out some of the things that he engages there. Also support Dr. Ronald Neal and look into his work if you haven't been, although if you're listening to this show, I'm sure you have, so spread the word for all of us. All right. What's up, Dre? Let's see, Greg. What's up, Jay the Beano Advocate? What's going on? Got D in here, so we're got a few in here, and y'all see what the topic is. We're dealing with Black men and reimagining child support, and this subject came out of a discussion. What's up, Queen Kalila? Hope you're well. No one, what's up? Came out of an organic conversation I was having with Brother BGS, and had a lot to do with a video that he recently dropped. So what better way to engage it than to dive into it as a show. So let me go ahead and welcome BGS to the show. What's up, man?
Hey, Doc, what's going on?
You, man, how you doing?
Pretty good.
Now you just got out of school.
Yeah, it is what it is.
For those that don't know, he's helping his grandson, and it's funny, man, because his grandson's teacher can tell the difference when BGS is helping his grandson and when he's not. So that's how it needs to be. And we need to step up and make sure our kids and grandkids get what they need. So shout out to you for that, man.
Yeah. You gotta go back to the fourth grade, man. Do it all over again.
Yeah, I know that's rough on you, but we were, as I was saying though, we were talking about this just over the phone, and kind of got into this topic about reimagining child support and all together. And you posted a video that I want to kind of notify people about and get you to talk about a little bit so we can actually see what you mean. But let me go ahead and put it up. So if you're not familiar, you need to support BGS more. Go to the channel, subscribe, if you haven't already. And you can also support some of his other channels. You want to tell them about the other ones?
Well, the ones that I'm still currently actually uploading to is just two. It's basically BGS IBMOR. That's more less about women. It's more about structure. It's more about politics, more about laws, more about different things other than straight game and the black female fuckery, as we say. But
Okay.
the Black Pill Gnostic is directed expressly for talking about women, talk about our troubles with women, and all the kind of stuff that we not normally go through with black women. So that's like I kind of differentiated the two channels.
Okay.
So. But
Okay.
those are my two main channels. And sometimes people get confused. They say, "Why are you talking about women on this channel?" I said, "Because this is what that channel's about. Want to talk about other stuff? They have another channel that you don't even go to the videos on to talk
Right.
about business, talk about
Global
global
politics.
politics. We just did one about the dollar crisis. Okay,
Mhm.
stuff that people want to say they want to hear, what they want to talk about, but they don't support the video when you put it up.
Mhm.
Yeah, but anyway, that's a different story.
Well,
It's
well,
not
this
always
one,
about women. Women are just a small facet of what's going on with black men.
right. But it's an important one. It deals with family and reproduction
Hmm.
and all of
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
It's contrary to what some people think. It's not just dating or
No,
the game. It's really, it encompasses much of the social and familial life of black men. So I see why it takes up so much room in the
yeah.
discussion. But as you point out, it's not the only thing.
It's not the only thing, but the smallest component of any society is a family. So,
Right.
and
Right.
that's where it starts. And you have to have a male and female to actually have a family. So,
And that
yeah,
tends to be the basis of a
yes,
society.
as a society. So as the family goes, so goes the society. So,
Right.
so it's all interconnected.
But the inspiration behind today's show is the video you guys can see in the middle of the screen. 20 states in 2017 considered laws to promote shared custody. Now, I tried to open up the article, but it's behind a paywall, so I couldn't get
Hmm.
to check it out. But if you could talk to us a little bit about this video and, what made you cover it and what did it deal with?
Well, the thing is it was sent to me by one of my think tank supporters, right? And they sent it to me, and I looked at about how old it was. And the reason I put this up is to uh, number one show that what we talk about it, what Doc had put up on his black male agenda, black male political agenda about 50-50 shared custody, right? And the thing is that I wanted to show that the manosphere, uh, the total manosphere and the black manosphere does have an effect. Okay,
Mhm.
people always say that what we do online doesn't have an effect. We just talk about women. We just, doing, for lack of a better term, a circle jerk, right? And it doesn't have any effect in the real world. And but nobody ever looks for the obvious effects or the obvious signs that this stuff does have an effect. And this is
Mhm.
one of them, right? MGTOW, black manosphere, all this stuff has an effect on men. So naturally, it's going to have an effect on what? On the politics and the laws that go along with it. And
Right.
this is just one of them. Okay, we asked for 50-50 shared custody because that's one of our, I don't know if it's the first, but it's close to the top five of our, in the agenda. Okay, 50-50 shared custody, child support, all that kind of stuff is on the agenda. And they're showing that even in 2017, 5 years ago, when nobody's looking, 20, not one state, but 20 states are considering this. Okay,
Mhm.
considering passing laws for as 50-50 shared custody as a starting point, not an ending point, but as a starting point.
Right.
Okay,
Right.
which is significant, because
Mhm.
when I had my children were small, I wish I could have got the same deal.
Mm. Not
You
bad.
know,
Right.
They told me you are, she has the children and you are the bank. That's what they told us back in 1990. When I went to
Damn.
my lawyer's office. Okay, you're the bank. You don't
Damn.
have no rights. Okay, she got all the rights. The only rights you have is to determine maybe what religion she has and maybe, just maybe, what school she has. But other than that, you don't have no rights. Okay,
Wow.
all we can do is run a formula and see how much you pay. That's it.
Yeah.
End
And
of. Yeah.
and the formula is really one of the things we're talking about tonight. So
Hmm.
you introduced this article as far as how many states are already kind of going into a direction that we're
Right.
advocating for.
Right.
And one of the things that I was introducing to this is the formula on how
Hmm.
much men pay is still based on an outdated model.
Right.
It's based on a 70s era model where women weren't really expected to work, you
Right.
know, and we're in a very different time period. Right?
Hmm.
You look at child support, which in many ways was configured around, the kind of diminished activism that feminists put forth in regard to alimony. Right,
Right.
alimony, as we all know, has to do with the support of a previous wife ongoing, so she can,
Yeah.
maintain the quality of life
Yeah.
she's used to.
Yeah. The remnants of a patriarchy.
Well, the remnants of a patriarchy. But
Hmm.
here's the thing about it. I have an associate, very close associate. She is right now. She's got to be in her early 70s, and she divorced in the early night, like about 1981. Right.
Hmm. Right.
She is still receiving alimony
Hmm.
from her first husband and
Hmm.
only husband. Right. Because usually the dynamic is when you remarry, that's when
Yeah.
alimony stops. But
Right.
what happens if she doesn't remarry?
Yeah. Yeah. But she basically she's in possession of another man, so he's on the clock.
So he's on the clock. So
Right.
there are certain types of patriarchy that people don't seem to mind. Uh, most particularly those who criticize patriarchy as an institution. They criticize it in theory, but they really don't mind the benefits of it. So and mind you, my associate is six-figure earning. Matter of fact, she
Hmm.
just retired, six figures,
Hmm.
well-to-do. Uh,
Hmm.
very upper class upbringing, upper middle class, I would say.
Hmm.
And well off. But
Yeah. But boule to the max. Yeah.
oh yeah, and still to this day in her 70s getting child support. So the point I'm making is that this is an ongoing issue for men, and it needs to be something we talk about. But even though alimony, is on the table, it's diminished. I mean, it wasn't really something that feminists pushed for as hard because, especially in the late 70s, they were really looking at focusing on women's employment.
Right.
And
Yeah.
so when they started to notice, however, that certain women who had not worked were adversely affected by this, they really
Hmm.
began to double down on child support to
Hmm.
compensate
Hmm.
for what they weren't pushing for with
Yeah.
alimony.
In fact, they did. The feminists actually did say that in the article, and
Okay.
she did. They actually did mention it.
You can
Well,
pull it up if you want. I couldn't get past the
okay.
payroll. And
I'll
there's so
pull it.
many different, articles and companies that, after a while you paying a grip per month just for, you know,
I understand. When I
yeah.
sent it to you, I forgot it might be behind a paywall. I should have sent you the PDF. Uh,
But at the end of the day, though, what I'm getting at with this is when I talk about an outdated model, the formula that
hmm.
BGS was referring to before, and this is something I'm going to want you guys to participate in later in the show, most particularly men who've gone through a child support judgment. This is not something that I'm responding to out of personal experience. The way this came about is when we started the Black Male Political Agenda, which I'll put up on the screen in a moment. I started asking Black men to send policy ideas that would benefit Black men, mainly because I had never seen one in my lifetime. I'm almost 50. I've never actually seen a list of policy proposals that actually target Black men as the beneficiary. Never
Hmm.
seen it. So when we started formulating this, brothers started pulling this together, and the longest subject area was family court revision, family court,
Hmm.
reformation or whatever. And of course, in regard to that, divorce, child support, alimony were the most significant areas. So that said, we're going to delve into adding a potential new component, a new addition to that list of suggestions about family court, reformation. And one of the major things we're talking about today is the formula that's used to define child support, right? And how that formula is predicated on a model where women didn't work. But in 2022, it's common that not only do women work, but their employment levels are higher than men's in
Hmm.
many
Hmm.
instances. and there are many that make more than men, right? And
Right,
so,
right,
and should that affect the very formula of how
right.
child support and even alimony are imagined?
It should. Well, well, most states have already done the work, because women are making more, and plus women don't want to pay alimony. A
Right.
lot of your alimony laws have been either severely restricted or eliminated altogether. Like in Florida, I think lifetime alimony, unless it's in extreme circumstances, is only 7 years, right?
Hmm.
Where it used to be
Okay.
for the rest of your life. Now it's
For the rest of
max 7 years.
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And normally you have to really be married quite a long time to get that. And
Mhm.
Texas, I do believe it's I think it's pretty much eliminated.
Okay.
So there's a bunch of states where the alimony laws have pretty
Mm.
much been stripped, severely reduced or eliminated. So it
Right.
is happening, and some of it's happening because women don't want to pay alimony because they're actually making more than their spouse, and then
Hmm.
and then and then some in some states it's because the like you say the laws are outdated
Right.
because me and Green Gorilla said there's no longer patriarchy. So if you have basically a egalitarian or equity sharing society, then the patriarchal laws that used to be there um, should be eliminated because under patriarchy, the reason you pay alimony under patriarchy is because her and her womb was seen as property. And
Right.
if you used her during her youth and you had children by her, the children belonged to you, the property belonged to you, and you couldn't just put her out for a younger woman without compensating her for it.
Mhm.
That was the old patriarchal law, which back then it was fair. Okay, yeah, you used her for 20 years or 15 years. She had 5 kids for you. You just can't put her out with nothing. Okay, so
Well,
that was fair. But
and
the
on
thing
top
that
of
no longer
that,
applies. Go ahead.
if she didn't have a work history, right,
Yes.
to divorce her and put her back in the workforce with no work history, she'd be at a
Yeah.
severe disadvantage. Shout out
Right.
to MLR for the contribution. Appreciate that, good brother. Y'all make sure you like, share, subscribe, join, donate, support the channel. So the options are there. You can do the super chat. You can do PayPal, the Venmo,
Yeah.
Cash App, but support the show. But
Yeah. I think they showed a. Let's see if we can pull up. Okay. These are the states. Let's see if I can enlarge it just a bit. These are the states that are considering 50-50 back then. It's 2017.
mhm,
Uh, actually had laws that were actually either leaning toward or considering 50-50 shared custody.
okay. So we got Texas, Arizona, Oregon, Washington. Okay.
Wyoming, like states you wouldn't think about: Montana, Wyoming,
Right.
North and South Dakota, Mississippi, and Alabama.
Hmm.
Okay, South Carolina. Most of them are actually red states.
Yeah. Yeah.
Most of these are
Um,
red states.
I noticed they don't. Maybe except for Texas. I don't know how many of us in Texas and New York. I don't know how many of us are actually in the rest of these states.
But
Well,
it's showing that I wanted to show that the manosphere and the stuff that we talk about online are is having an effect.
yeah.
Dr. Johnson is in position because of his because of his esteemed title. A lot of these people contact him because of that. All right, and he hears this stuff. So even though we think it doesn't have an effect on the outside world, people that are not even associated with the space, this does have an effect on.
But yeah, and if you wouldn't mind, if you could put the link to the article in the chat, so people can check it out if
Okay.
they're so inclined. But yeah, so there's definitely weight behind what we're doing here. And I know many of us, many people think of it as just, as you called it, a circle jerk. People just get up
Hmm.
here and talk. And, routinely I get people that tell me, well, it'd be more entertaining if you go do what other people are doing. And I'm saying, look, I'm trying to build a vocabulary which, allows Black men most particularly to express their experience and articulate it more clearly. But beyond being able to articulate it, the goal is also to transition it into something that has real world effect. You know what I mean? So if you look at other organizations or you look at other movements that are taking place, they actually much of the time started with theory. Much of
Hmm.
that theory starts in the academy and then it gains traction over decades. And one of the benefits of the technology we have access to is you can shorten that decades long transition period
Hmm.
because if you look at intersectionality, it doesn't come out until 1989. By 2015, 2014, you got organizations like BLM that are based on intersectionality. So if you look at that dynamic, what happens when you develop ideas in an era where social media is rampant. You can actually transition that into a political ethos much faster. And so it's possible and it is in traction. And I can tell you that the black male political agenda is something that politicians have responded to me about, but nothing in terms of, nothing they want to engage publicly, right?
Right.
But they'll go through these various ideas. And the next thing you know, you'll see a little article somewhere, talking about something that's very reminiscent of one of the points on the agenda. So this stuff has traction. And this is why I leave the agenda up as a static living document. It is something that you all can contribute to. You can send me an idea that you think needs to be added, and we'll discuss it and go from there. If I think it's worthy of discussion, then possibly add it to the list. So we'll go to that in a second. But anything else you wanted to say about this particular article?
There's probably a couple things.
Mm-hmm.
If you can hear me. Yeah, I should have went to my PDF where I had it marked up.
You can bring it
You
up
know.
if you want to.
Now I had to find it then.
Oh, okay.
Uh, there was a couple things that were kind of stood out. One was I don't know if I can find it. One was they're talking about the 10 years doctrine, right there, right?
Mm-hmm.
For more than a century, the decisions were guided by the 10 years doctrine, right?
Mm-hmm.
That put women on a pedestal
Okay.
for domesticity, right? In other words, women, like you said, women didn't work, and women did not work, and plus, women were determined to be the best caregivers of children. Okay, no matter what. So, and first, I think the 10 years doctrine. The first one was in 1823, I do believe,
Mm-hmm.
and it only went up to age 7. And then I think it was 1896 or something like that. It went up to age 16, which at 16 back then, a child was actually an adult.
Okay.
So that was like remnants of the old patriarchy. Okay. And then the second thing, if I can find it, um, a lot of your feminist groups, right? They they didn't want it to pass because they were actually saying they will eliminate child support.
Mm-hmm.
In
Mm-hmm.
other words, and a lot of your feminists were saying that because of the child support laws, it actually um, equalized the woman not being able to work or a woman not earning as much.
Mm-hmm.
So they were looking that it actually benefited women or poor women.
Okay.
As you were saying, in 1970, finding out women couldn't get alimony and they had children and they didn't earn as much. Child support was a way of actually equalizing that.
Right.
So so it's not about the children, the best interest of the children. It's
Mhm.
about getting payments to women.
And that was one of the things that surprised me when I first became a single father. Most of my listeners know I didn't get divorced; I was a widower. But
Hmm.
nevertheless, when my wife passed and I became a single father almost overnight, one of the things I started to look at was how much it actually cost to raise a child. Now,
Hmm.
obviously, if you're talking about keeping a child in the upper middle class, that's a whole different thing. You're talking about private school and so on and so forth. But I couldn't afford those things necessarily.
Right.
But in terms of just everyday management, food, clothing, and I'm talking about a kid that was much taller than he needed to be
Right.
for his age,
Right.
it wasn't massively expensive. So I always
Right.
had this question mark in my head when I would hear men tell me about how much they were grappling with child support. And I'm like, I take my kids shopping once a year.
Right.
I mean, for the most part, I get groceries that I would get anyway. You know what I
Right.
mean? So it was
Right.
never really a major thing. And so those are one of the things that I was curious about. And when we started the Black Male Political Agenda and brothers started talking about their experiences with this, it was hard to hear sometimes.
Right. Yeah, it was. Yeah. Yeah. That's the whole thing.
Mhm.
That because me actually reading not only through this but also reading the child support book and the evolution of how child support came about.
Mhm.
Um, uh, in uh, over the history of it, going all the way back to the 18th century and moving its way up.
Mhm.
Um, it was always child support was always meant to be a last resort. In other words, you paid you paid to actually relieve the society of the burden. So
Mhm.
I would say up until like 1990 or so,
Mhm.
Basically, the man would pay per child what the state would pay per child.
Okay.
It was never a percentage of income. Whatever the state paid, you paid. You paid a percentage of what the state paid.
Which
So,
meant that you were also in a position where you could find yourself punished legally for being
hmm
poor.
right.
You know what I mean? And that's one of the things. And I do want to actually, I give this quote a lot because I think it's incredibly important. Hold on, let me pull it up. I think it's by David J. Pate, and it speaks to this very issue. So bear with me for 1 second. Wasn't planning to bring it up, but I like to make sure we have it. So here it is. So basically, 20% of the people in the system shouldn't be in there because they're too poor, says
Right.
David J. Payton, associate professor of social work at the University of Wisconsin Milwaukee. Those $10,000 or even $20,000 earners, the government, according to Pate, is owed $115 billion in child support, but 70% of that money is
hmm
owed by Americans who make less than $10,000 a year.
Yeah, and in fact, I did a video on that maybe 3 years ago,
Right.
and they were trying to instead of sending these men to jail for non-support, they would say it was better to actually put them into a jobs program to actually where they can actually earn more.
Now, and we're going to talk about that in a minute because that's one of the proposals on the agenda that you submitted, as a matter of fact. But it's just important to notice how this can become, a punishment dynamic for men who are already poor. And the thing to keep in mind is that quote is pre-pandemic, so we
hmm
don't yet know how the pandemic impacted, this dynamic altogether. But shout out to Newstel and Indigo Flow. Hope y'all are well. Let me go ahead and put this up. So we're gonna go through a little bit of the political agenda, so you guys can see what was developed already. Now, this was born here on the Onyx Report. This is produced by the Brotherhood of the Onyx Report. Um, and again, you can contribute ideas. These are all political proposals that we hope can be used to improve the quality of life for Black men and boys. And here we're trying to do that through policy. So, family court reform is the first thing on the list. And mind you, this was developed all based on submission. So, these are not policies that I necessarily came up with. These are policies that were submitted um, directly by you all, right? And this is not for people of color. This is not, for, the poor or the working class. These are specific policy suggestions for Black males. Because I really get tired of this tap dance where if you want to advocate for Black males, you got to hide it behind other issues. All of the agenda components are directly targeted toward Black males, right? So that's first and foremost. But you can see family court reform has several different subjects, and this is the longest one, as a matter of fact, right? So the first one on here is even longer than incarceration or issues with law enforcement. Family court reform was seemed to be the number one point that contributors to the Black male political agenda wanted to delve into. So we got
hmm
child custody, and of course we're suggesting 50-50,
Automatic child, yeah, yeah, yep.
automatic 50-50.
hmm
Got mandatory paternity testing at birth,
hmm
right? And then we had a little addendum added later. Once determined that the father has been misled regarding the child's parentage, no matter how long it has been, he should be excused from both the birth certificate and child support at his determination, and the exploited party should be subject to legally sanctioned reimbursement from the mother, the biological father, and relevant city, state, federal government offices.
mm
Right. So these are
Yeah.
these are brothers who are on the ground
Mm.
responding to our situation, what we're going through. Reinstituting at fault divorce standards, another suggestion. Financial abortion. If you're not familiar with the financial abortion, it's
Dave Chappelle, huh?
Dave Chappelle said it best. Yeah,
hmm
and I wish I had that quote primed up, but then I get hit. But anyway, so basically, it has to do with the fact that it is her body, her choice,
hmm
but men have very little say as to what happens, and her decision really determines at least the next 18 years of your life. And so men should have the option to opt out, within the first 6 months of being informed. And notice the difference. It's not the first 6 months of the pregnancy. It's the first 6 months of being informed about the
Right.
pregnancy,
Right.
right? Or the baby, if it goes past pregnancy and she gives birth and then tells you and
hmm
and, and decides to bring you into a court as far as
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. They have prenatal paternity tests. So
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So men should have the right to financially disassociate themselves from a pregnancy if they don't choose to have one. So
Hmm.
she has the right to decide if there's going to be a baby. And I've been on each side of this for the most part. I mean, I've wanted a baby and had it, and she decided to abort it, and all that kind of stuff. It's one of those things that from experience, you have very little say so. You just have
Hmm.
to sit and hope she decides on something that works, consistently with what you're looking for. But there's no reason that can't be more balanced, despite the biology of it. So the financial abortion is an important factor, and this is something that men's rights activists have been pushing for a minute. So it didn't start. I'm not suggesting it started here, but we're joining that effort. Child support value system,
Hmm.
right? Advocating an institution of system where goods, services, and time spent with a child should be calculated and valued at a dollar amount. Any remaining deficit to be paid in cash. Also, child support should be capped at $2,500 per child, regardless of income, except in the case of suggested practice addressed
Is
in
it
letter
is it
I.
is it is that per year? Or is that per year?
It didn't say, so
Okay.
we can add detail to that.
Yeah.
And because again, this is not an area that I have direct experience, so I am open
Okay. Yeah.
to you all's responses about this, so you can go in and be detailed. Um, right to lifestyle, right?
Hmm.
Post divorce, men should be entitled to the life they have been accustomed to in the marriage. Thus,
Hmm.
any judgment or consent determination made must ensure that the husband can enjoy the same privileges and lifestyle enjoyed before or during the marriage, whichever costs more to maintain.
Mm.
Right? Require formal child support management papers or reports, excuse me. Ensure that child support payments are earmarked specifically for approved child related expenses only. Payments used on non child related expenses must be accounted for by the custodial parent. Now, this is something you just kind of referenced
Hmm.
in the article, because you talked about how child support, even when it was being formulated and pressed into policy,
Right.
was never just limited to the child's well being.
No.
So talk about the impact of this letter G here on in terms of how it can impact child support.
Oh, if it has to be go toward the maintenance of a child, and basically, then that will actually cap the amount. But like you said, it doesn't to maintain a child doesn't cost as much, okay, as
Mhm.
you think it does, okay, and it shouldn't be done to actually maintain a woman's lifestyle. So in other words, if you say if you're wealthy, especially, um, what the child support judges actually say, the child should have the same lifestyle with his mother that he has with you.
Mhm.
So in other words, if you got a mansion, then she should have at least a certain portion of that fund to live the same lifestyle, no matter what house he's in,
Okay.
which actually benefits the woman. So that's where you get all this, these lessons and flowers and food and maintaining a lifestyle, right? A lifestyle for her. So basically, it should be only for the maintenance of the child, you
Yeah.
know, and it shouldn't be for the maintenance of the child that's in your house because she didn't earn it. And I said,
Mm.
if she wants the child to be upgraded in a lifestyle to upper middle class lifestyle, she has to go to work,
Mm.
just
And
like
that's
you have to go to work. Yeah.
definitely something men have talked about on this channel, where they'll even have majority custody and
Hmm.
still be paying high
Oh
levels
yeah. Oh
of
yeah. Yeah. I
house.
had that. That's I had friends that actually said that, right? Basically,
Mhm.
basically, women hold your children hostage, okay, for
Mm.
money. So they said, well, you should ransom your child by paying the child support and taking possession of the child. So basically, you're getting hit double because you have to maintain the lifestyle and all the cost of the child and pay her money just out of like almost like blackmail.
Wow.
And I know a friend that actually had to do that, where he took possession of the child, and the court said he still had to pay child support to his ex-wife.
Mm. Mm. We got a well, shout out to Michael Ross for the contribution. Appreciate that. Got an interesting comment from Sardo Noomspot. And I love that name coming from a Golden Child flick. But he makes an interesting suggestion here. What's not mentioned is that the judges, who are not actual judges, get kickback based on the cases they rule on. The DOJ in 2016 told them this was illegal and to stop. They just ignored it.
Yeah, yeah, because the biggest block of voters are who female, and they've talked about reforming child support, right?
Mm-hmm.
And even in California, right? And said have busloads of ex-wives and girlfriends bust up to the Sacramento to protest.
Mm-hmm.
So this is a really contentious spot, especially for women.
Yeah. And
So the,
neutral. Oh, go ahead.
and men and black men have not made enough noise until now.
Yeah, and this is what we're pushing for. We want to give brothers the armament, the
Hmm.
articulation, and even the policy suggestions, so we can make more noise about it. Newstel actually says that he said me and a judge went through that. I hope you
Hmm.
have time to come up tonight because I really want to hear from brothers who are going through this. I want to hear what your thoughts are about some of the suggestions we're going to make soon.
Yeah.
So if you're going to be around in a minute, come on up, and I'll put the link out
Yeah.
soon enough.
Yeah. I found the PDF. Here's the quote. Okay.
What do we?
Uh,
This is the quote.
from the article. Okay. It said critics of the bills, including women's rights groups and some legal associations, say that stricter laws will roll back important protections against abusive or controlling former spouses and take away discretion away from judges who are tasked with deciding what is in the best interest of the children. They also say that the bills, which would directly apply to only 10% of the divorcing parents who cannot come to an agreement, are unnecessary because more divorcing parents are already choosing shared custody. Okay. Laws that require joint physical custody could also lead to the elimination of child support in some states. Women advocates say disrupting a system that was designed to help women
Oh,
and didn't say help the children, help women who have historically been paid less in the workforce while performing more unpaid labor at home. Okay, that disparity in assets and earning power doesn't simply disappear at separation. Okay. This is women. Okay. This is women saying this stuff. It's not a child support, is really not about the child.
right.
Okay. These are women's groups that say that. But they actually come out and say it point blank.
Mhm.
So babe, if you thought that it was about the best interest of the children, no, it's not. It's about the best interest
Yeah.
of the woman.
Yeah. Okay. So moving forward, we got point H: prohibit
Hmm.
jailing for failure to pay child support.
Hmm.
Such incarceration frequently punishes men for being poor more than
Hmm.
anything else. This in turn
Hmm.
increases black male unemployment and further hurts families' economic stability. And there's a link there to ncsl.org for more information. Right. Then you have point I: income floor for child support. Right. There should be a set minimum income for anyone on child support. If someone is chronically under
Chronically,
this floor in terms
uh-huh.
of income, then state governments should provide opportunities for them to intern at an apprenticeship in a trade.
Hmm.
Only if they quit and refuse to work in an apprenticeship should they be then incarcerated.
Yeah, at the bare minimum,
Right.
because it doesn't help the state, it doesn't help you, and doesn't help the children, it doesn't even help the mother.
Mhm. And this one is important too because again, pre-pandemic, we know
Hmm.
in 35 major cities, black men were unemployed at rates up to 40 and 50%. You get to that level, you're not talking about laziness versus people on the grind. You're talking about a lack of options, a lack of availability, a lack of opportunity that ties all the way in from K through 12 to training for specific jobs. So if you're going to then turn around and incarcerate people who are behind on child support while having extreme unemployment numbers like we do, you're really setting up a recipe for a pipeline
Hmm.
into prison. And even for men that have good jobs, quote unquote, but find themselves, not able to keep up, find themselves in a position where their license is taken, where losing those jobs is on the table, and some do. It gets even worse when they have to go to prison, losing where they live, sometimes losing family, all of that.
Losing their driver's license, their passports,
Right.
their if they have trades that they need licenses, they lose that. All
Mhm.
the kind of stuff to strip them from all any way of making money.
Right. Right.
Okay, and if you do that, but the child support doesn't stop. If
Right.
you strip them all that, then they have no way of making money. You put them in jail, give them a case. It affects their ability to actually have employment. And what have you done? You haven't done anything good for anybody. All it is a scare tactic to make more men compliant.
But it's a
That's all it is.
tactic that contributes to the underdevelopment, the structural
Hmm.
underdevelopment of black men. predicated on really kind of using nature against them. The reproduction is a natural act, but
Mm-hmm.
when it can lead to higher levels of incarceration or financial underdevelopment. Again, I have a stepfather
Mm-hmm.
who is in his 70s with cancer. He's still paying back child support in arrears now for a stepbrother of mine who's a month younger than me. I'm almost 50. And the irony there is the mother died in the 90s. He's still making, payments in arrears.
Yes.
2022, after the pandemic, after insecure housing, the man is out there grinding every day. He has no retirement, but there's no relinquishing child support for him, even
Right.
though there's no child to be. You know what I mean? Anyway, so these are the issues there as far as that. Then you have letter J, child support and alimony assistance program, where it can be proven that a man's child support and alimony judgment requirements are causing a practical impact on his standard of living. The state government and municipality shall pay the cost in whole or in part, but no less than 66% of the total cost of the child support and alimony payments. And again, these are not personal to me. These are all suggestions coming from you all. So if you have an addendum, you have something you want to add, something you want to clarify, details, please send them in. Please participate in the discussion. Right. Because and this is something to keep in mind. When there is a point where people are interested in what Black men want politically, if you've seen the interviews that took place during the last presidential elections, they usually do these little barbershop interviews and they start asking brothers, what is it that would garner your vote? I mean,
Mm-hmm.
much of the time, the things we talk about are generic. They're generic to the Black community, because many of us have actually never reflected on what the specific needs are for Black males. But the interesting thing is when they ask Black women what kinds of issues they have, what kind of things they want, they know. They
Mm-hmm.
can articulate what they want. They can, Black men are still operating with a very different paradigm that's far more communal and generic to the community, which is not a bad thing in some respects. But the problem is we're moving into a different era where people are able to be more distinct, more clear, and we find ourselves not able to do that. Because there's no way in the world that this blog should be the only Black male political agenda you can find.
Right.
If you can
Yeah.
find another, I'm happy to be wrong. I am happy to be wrong.
There isn't any. I can tell you, there isn't any.
Okay. So the fact that this is the only one I've been able to find, look, even like I said, even if there's 10 more, the fact that this is the only one I can find is already a problem. If this is the
Mm-hmm.
only one that exists, that means we got a lot of work to do to start thinking differently about how to engage the environment. So we have point K, tax filing options. And this one got real interesting, right? So at income tax time, it's believed that some women sell their children's social security numbers to friends, family members, etc.
They do.
The brother that sent me this was passionate about this one, boy. He was hot.
Oh, it's an old trick. Yeah.
Yeah. Either when the mother is not working or has maxed out her
Mm-hmm.
two-child benefit to receive income credits.
Mm-hmm.
Thus, one, whenever a third party submits tax returns claiming care of another person's child, any child support orders to the mother of stated child should be rendered void, or denial of the third party's claims on the child as a dependent. This should
Mm-hmm.
fall under saving tax dollars. The natural
Mm-hmm.
question should be, why is the mother being paid for a child under the care of a third party?
Mm.
So again, these are the brothers I'm hoping will participate in today's show because they're dealing with this daily. Point two, welfare benefits and incentives for women fuel the single mother phenomenon. So to eliminate welfare contingencies or to incentivize contingencies for fathers, we propose a cap on subsidizing single mothers and or subsidize single fathers.
Mm.
Point three,
Okay.
any child support paid should be considered earned income due to it being taxed. Women are allowed to claim child support as an extra earned income that improves their credit and ability to finance vehicles and other products and services. Men who pay child support are not allowed to claim payments made when filing taxes, even when the amount can be a third or even 50% of their earned income. You know. Point four, we advocate policy that exempts child support payments from the applicant's gross income when they apply for public housing and or housing assistance. The payment is counted as income for the custodial parent and counted in the gross income for the non-custodial parent. Their gross income dictates their acceptance into the program and their rent amount. Some men may not qualify due to their gross income being over the limit, but he may not actually bring that amount home due to child support payments. His rent may be exceptionally higher since HUD states that 30% of gross income should go to rent. This leads to a plethora of issues for many Black brothers in the community, such as Black male homelessness, joblessness, and the propagating of children born out of wedlock. And tell me these brothers ain't thorough, man. Damn.
Mhm. They've been holding this water for a long time.
For a long one. Yeah. And so that's the list. That's just for family court reform. Like I said, this list is much longer in general for Black men. I mean, it goes all the way through point 14. So that was only point 1 for family court reform. That was only point 1.
Mm.
But today we're going to talk a little bit about another option to add to this list. And I want to get some feedback from BGS and then also get some feedback from you all, right? And so it reads, since child support is treated as another form of alimony in many respects, 2 things should be addressed by the family court on a national level. First one is 50-50 custody should eliminate child support, assuming expenses are jointly paid by both parents. Now, you talked a little bit about this a few moments ago when you were going through the article. Anything you want to add to that as far as this one?
Basically, if each parent should be responsible for the maintenance of a child, right? So if there's 50-50 shared custody, then there shouldn't be any money going back across to the other person, okay? Because that person should be able to maintain a child on their own,
Okay.
whatever means they have of doing it, right? So 50-50 shared custody should eliminate all child support because basically it's a zero sum game, right?
Mm-hmm.
Why you need to pay for somebody, that person not paying you, you're not paying them. So basically it's even. Should be zero.
Well, and let's keep in mind too that, and this is for some of the people in the chat, that what I was just reading a moment ago is the Black Male Political Agenda. Both myself and BGS put the link in the comment section, so you can go check that out while you listen to the show if you want to read it more in depth. Miss KP says they are manipulating time spent even when there is a 50-50 custody order. Wow.
They try, yeah. Well, the judges will always try to, lean toward fudging toward the 10 years doctrine. So, and people say, well, you can go get, illegally, you can go do this, that, or the other. And in family court, judges have supreme amount of power because I've seen and heard judges throw out airtight paperwork. Just, I don't like it. You look weird. I don't believe you. Boop, just scrape it off. They have an extreme amount of power. So a lot of people are saying that if you just go to court and apply, you probably have a good chance of winning. You might have a better chance of winning now because the pendulum is swinging back toward the other way, right? But it's still an uphill battle. So now if you go into court to fight, don't think it's going to be a cakewalk or think you have rights that you may or may not have. Well, number one, it's state by state. Every state is different. Number one.
Right.
And number two, even if you do have an airtight case, that judge, if you get a judge that's not friendly to you, the judge can throw all that stuff out.
Right.
And they have.
Absolutely. Lionel Player One, appreciate that contribution. Lionel says, what's the link to support these brothers with this reform of child support? The link, you can go to Patreon and support the Onyx Report. Do it through there. That's what the basis of this is. Remember, this is a list of compiled political proposals by Black men through the Onyx Report channel. So we created this, and we can we can tighten it up, we can add to it, we can change it. If policy or any other environmental shift causes the necessity for one of these things to be removed or revised, we can do that. This is a living document that we created that is designed to stand as a static space for these lists of concerns to be referenced by anybody, really, especially in regard to discussions about politics, about what Black men need, even for politicians who are willing to do that work on that end. So that said, let's move to part B. And this is the crux of today's suggestion, right? So we got part A saying 50-50 custody should eliminate child support. But part B, the formula that determines child support is predicated on an outdated model of women not working. Now that labor participation is fairly equalized in terms of gender, the notion used by some states of children requiring 25 to 50% of parents' income should also be paid in equal measure by both parents, but reducing, one, men's majority child support default status, where men are the secondary parent, this needs to be reassessed. And this goes back to what BGS was talking about in regard to the tender years doctrine. This kind of default notion that women are the primary caretakers.
Mm-hmm.
And then part two, 25 to 50% of child support for men required to pay who do not have 50-50 custody should have their payments prorated to a percentage-based judgment against her usually ignored labor. Now, talk
Yes.
about what's the importance of that?
Yeah, okay. The formula, the way it's worked, especially in California, where I've seen it in other states, right? Okay, they're supposed to total your income and her income, and you're supposed to pay a percentage of what she can't make up for. So if you guys earn this about right around the same amount, basically your child support is supposed to be the minimum. Okay.
Mm,
Uh, so in other words, um, what judges have been doing, no matter what, they don't even consider her income at all.
okay,
Okay, they only consider your income,
right.
and you pay. They only put your income in the formula, and then you wind up paying the same amount if she didn't work,
Hmm.
and it happens quite a bit.
Right.
So they just figured it's a standard amount, and no matter what the formula says, that spit out, okay, well, I don't like it. You need to pay more for it because you can.
Hmm.
So in other words, so a lot of times, even in states where there is a formula, in California they do have a formula that's prorated according to her income. They don't always follow it.
Mm,
So if
okay.
you're going to have it on the books, and which it should be standard across the board, but if they have it on the books, they should follow it. And that's one of the things that we should emphasize because a lot of these laws are actually already on the books. They
Hmm.
just don't
Right.
follow them.
Right. Now, Miss KP offers two things I think we need to consider. One, she says the time frame to dispute a child support judgment should be extended. Right. That's first and foremost. The second point she adds is my husband asked the judge, why is only one parent paying the other when they have the same earning potential, make the same money, and have 50-50 custody? Crickets. And Kalila, you hit exactly on the point of why we're suggesting this addition to the black male political agenda under family court reform. That very thing, what you just said, encapsulates everything we're talking about right now. If both parents, have the same earning potential, make the same money, or at least the potential for it, why is one parent paying another? And this is in particular,
Hmm.
too, to black men who are willing to share 50-50 custody. There's far
Right.
more brothers that are willing to do it and actually already do. They're just not necessarily recognized. But this is not 1974. You know what I mean? This is a different era. And childcare, men participating in this is not. It's a very different dynamic. But the major difference is the women's involvement in the workforce. Now, for black women, it really isn't a question of whether black women work now versus then. Black women are not white women. Black women have always worked. The difference is they have a different access to a different type of labor.
Right.
1950s and 60s, you're talking about caretaking, you're talking about domestic work. But in 2022, we're talking about white collar.
Hmm.
We're talking about education related positions. It's a very different dynamic.
Yeah, that's true. Plus, women have access to any job that a man has if
Mhm,
she wants to apply.
mhm.
And do any job, from police officer all the way down to construction worker.
And Kalila's killing it tonight. Louis she said, I think the time frame is currently 6 months when a custodial parent can come back years later and slap a baseless order on someone.
Mm.
Wow.
Oh yeah, actually, basically, okay. I don't know what they do now, but the thing is, in California, say if a woman didn't file for child support, she wanted child support, they can only go in arrears so far. So
Mhm.
from the time she presents an order, I think they can go back like 6 months. Yeah.
Mm, mm. Yeah. So this is the addition. And, what I want to do is I want to bring people into the discussion who are able and willing to come on up, talk about this. I'm particularly interested in, those who have, a particular knowledge about this or who've gone through it. And I want to get you to weigh in on what we're talking about as far as, this kind of adjustment to what we think needs to happen with child support or any other ideas, revolving around this issue because I'm not opposed to adding another component if there's a good idea on the table. I'm going to go ahead and put the invitation in the chat. Right? And you're willing, if you're willing to come on up, you know, you should be able to come in, whether it's on a phone or through a computer. We do ask you to kind of reduce your background noise to the best of your ability. And, of course, be civil. That is what it is. We want to keep the channel clean,
Yes.
but definitely come in if you have a thought that can help us build. And the fundamental idea here is to improve the quality of life for Black men and boys. That's the fundamental issue that we bring to the table. Shout out to Newstel, who's in the house. What's up, man? Can you hear us?
Oh, now I can hear you. Yes.
Okay. How you doing, man?
I'm doing just put away Chinese food, but I'm good.
Okay.
Can y'all hear me?
You're boring a little bit. Shout out to Marcus.
Can y'all hear me now?
Brandon. Yeah, we can hear you.
Yeah, we got you. Yeah.
Shout out to Marcus Brandon for becoming a new member of the Onyx Brotherhood. Welcome. Yeah. So any thoughts? Because you mentioned in the chat. Oh.
I'm here.
Good. Okay.
Yeah. Yes, that
you
was
mentioned
a chair.
in the chat. You mentioned that you've been through some of this before. Talk a little bit about, in terms of what you're willing to share, what you experienced.
Yeah, I told this story in the Coliseum a while ago. And the reason why I told the story, because I heard Judge Dredd, he told a similar story. I think his was more worse than mine. But I had to, the fact that my son was kind of bad in school.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess the teachers couldn't control him. My ex didn't know how to handle him. It was almost like the Boys in the Hood situation with Styles and was it Trey?
Okay.
Whatever.
Yeah.
So
Boys in the Hood.
it got to the point. Yeah, like Boys in the Hood, right?
Yeah.
So my mother told me that okay, you have to get custody, but you got to sweeten the pot because she's gonna do it for money.
Okay.
And so mainly, I made a proposal to reduce the child support and to have majority custody over him. She didn't bat an eye. She took it. And I think partially it was because this is during the time when Trayvon Martin too.
Okay.
And so I think all that stuff played its part. So I had to pay. So she was only seeing him for like 5 days a month.
Wow.
And I was still paying child support.
So what percentage did you have it reduced?
It was from $880 a month to $300.
Okay.
Oh yeah. Well, yeah. Lack of expenses. Yeah. She took it. Free money.
And then she. Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
So shout out to Dar. Appreciate that support. He says, sharing a piece of my overtime for the cause and the good doctor. Thank you for that. Also, we got Lamont 2X up in here. Now, Lamont, I'm gonna give you the mic in a second. I want Newstel to finish his point, but I just wanted to welcome you up into the show. So go ahead.
And so she continued even after she remarried. She still continued to take the money. We were shaking our heads. Well, me and because my son kind of knew a little bit about it as he got older. And I don't know, but for the most part, yeah, that was my arrangement. I had to go to the courts and do an amendment on the child support order. And by the way, she did work for the child support services.
Oh, wow. Wow. Okay.
So she had to. She was pretty much doing the most.
Yeah.
And she got me. She kind of lied and said I wasn't paying child support. And I guess she didn't anticipate that I had check stubs.
Oh.
And so so first they were garnishing my wages. Okay, based on her word. And then when I produced the proof that I was paying it, then she had to she was wind up having to pay me back in payments. So
she was thrilled about that ugly. One.
Oh yeah, she was hot and she worked for the place. So
right.
that was a victory. But I'll let go ahead.
That was risky. That's like getting in a relationship with a divorce attorney and getting married to a you were in there throwing dice, man.
Yeah, I was thrown off because I thought for sure since, the way she was raised, I
Hmm.
thought that would made a factor because she was raised in the nation. So
Oh,
I really didn't think that was going to happen.
right,
I really didn't think so.
right.
But as you get further into some families,
Again,
you see a lot of stuff.
the gynocracy is real. Okay.
Yeah.
Yes, it's everywhere.
Hmm.
And that's an important point because when we talk about, the nation as an example or other such, practices where you kind of look to see, okay, well, this might be a source where you have women being raised with a different cultural outlook. We are still in a Western environment. We are still subject to policies that are not a product of those philosophies. So whether you're Muslim in the nation, whether you're a Hebrew Israelite, you know what I mean? You can have the cultural orientation you have in your immediate community, but you still find yourself subject to the laws of the environment we're in. And this is why we're addressing those laws, because the moment that she's frustrated enough with you, or, she can invoke these things, even if they stand against everything she said she didn't believe in. You know what I mean? They're
Yeah.
still on the books and available to her, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah. What's so crazy is that just overall, and this kind of depends on one's observation, but the ones that are converted are more dedicated than the ones that are raised in it. That's
Uh,
what I've been hearing a lot.
okay.
And so, who knows?
Right. Right. Well, let's get Lamont 2X in here. Lamont, can you hear us?
Yeah, I can hear you, brother. How's everybody doing this evening?
We're good, man. How about
Good.
yourself?
Pretty good, pretty good. End of the business day, but I'm glad I ran into you. I'm in Riverside County.
Okay. Okay.
You know, a couple of things. This is indeed, there's a spiritual element to what we're dealing with, brothers. But it's not gonna change at the individual courtroom level, because you guys have touched on it, but it's these judges have a lot of discretion in
Mhm.
that you can walk into a court with the same sort of circumstances. And anybody that's been in family law court, the typical routine is that you walk in, for a court start time at 8 o'clock, but you may not be heard till about 10, and you'll witness, 4 or 5 other cases.
Mhm.
And
Oh yeah.
it's, the same set of circumstances, but completely different, outputs,
Mm.
because judges have, they call it discretion, and which essentially means that, they can do whatever they want. Okay. I am at the tail end of a 5-year ordeal. In excess of probably about $120,000 worth of either attorney's fees, counseling fees,
Wow.
therapists, supervised monitoring, you name it. So I
Wow.
mean, immediately you start to get the easy big picture of why this thing actually operates.
Mhm.
What they're all about.
Mhm.
Family law court is the largest financial institution out of any court.
Right.
It makes more money than all the other courts combined. In Riverside, I think Orange County is pretty much the same way. But if you go downtown Riverside, the most opulent and most beautiful building in the downtown area is the Family Law Court building.
Okay.
So
So you said
this
you've
is
been going through this for about 5 years.
5 years. Three false domestic violence restraining orders, 5 false domestic violence restraining orders, 3
Wow.
false CPS reports,
Wow.
threw every one of them back at them, and
Wow.
absolutely nothing. Once we get to the bottom of, that they're meritless, absolutely nothing happens to mom.
Right.
Nothing, no slap on the wrist, nothing.
Wow.
Right. And, at like I said, at the end of the 5 years, the judge essentially proclaims what I said 5 years ago, and there's no redress. The
Now, when you
court,
say the judge, what did the judge? What do you mean?
it's a long story, but that's one thing, I want to collaborate with you because, as I was saying at the beginning of the call, this has to be changed at the state level. Family
Yes.
law is a state court, right?
Yes.
The federal government in a lot of cases won't even hear what they call it, when you fight a trial situation up to the Supreme Court, the family law, the Supreme Court will not even hear family law matters. There's a particular doctrine that they use that's escaping me that means that they won't hear family law matters. It can only get to the state level. That's at issue. One thing that, through all my research that I found out, and this is something that African American men could use. Okay, in the 70s, the Native Americans, they were getting hammered with foster care was taking their children left and right.
Right.
Okay, they took their situation to the Supreme Court, and it's called ICWA, the Indian Child Welfare Act. If you may have noticed, if you've ever had CPS in your life, right, one of the first things that they ask you is, do you have Native American ancestry?
That is true.
The reason why they ask you that is if the answer is yes, an entire different set of circumstances happens at that point, because Indians are afforded full due process protections,
right,
when it comes to their juvenile dependency and our family law issues. You're going to get a jury, you're going to get an attorney. It becomes real court.
Whole different process.
Yeah,
exactly.
because they're considered a separate nation. Yeah.
Well, that may be part of it, but I think what was at issue in 1970 is that what is happening to everybody is that this has nothing to do. There's no semblance of fair play in this.
No.
So I think that's one thing that African Americans could fight for, is to be given the same consideration that Native Americans are, because it was the chapter, the Black Lives Matter, the LA chapter. They had, however you feel about Black Lives Matter, but I was on their website doing research, and they had pointed out that in Los Angeles County, Black people are approximately 12% of the population, but like 33% of placement in foster care.
That is true. It used to be 50%.
Yeah, it's outlandish. And what they were talking about is, they had started a defund CPS program. Whatever you have to say about, I know Black Lives Matter is not that, everybody's cup of tea at this point in time, but, I'm on board with that part.
Yeah. Oh yeah. This is a big thing, because this is this is I think there was a former CPS social worker who was actually complaining about this like 20 years ago, and she was talking about how they were literally taking Black babies from mothers. Say mothers was on drugs or had a history of drugs, right? They were taking the baby from the mother in hospital, put them in foster care. So it was a huge, and still is a huge problem.
Yeah.
Well, they're doing it to the immigrants now, where they're separating the immigrant children from the immigrants, from the illegal aliens, and actually sending them home and keeping the children, putting them in foster care. So it's a huge problem.
Now, this discussion is open, especially for brothers who either have an in-depth knowledge about this for one reason or another, or you've gone through it. So I put the link in the chat. You're welcome to come up and talk about this, and especially if anybody has any suggestions, any ideas, or any responses to the ideas we've already covered. But go ahead and continue, Lamont.
Oh yeah, but one of the things that I'm advocating for right now is, firstly, just an issue, a point on the map that African American men could coordinate around. This is something that protects or affects us particularly. Like Malcolm X said, when the United States has a cold, African Americans have, we have the flu. Whatever issues that men have in this issue, our issues are multiplied, at least by a third. So, I think, we need to collaborate. When I found out, I was going on your website and trying to see where you were out of, now that I see that you're in California, I'd like to collaborate. I have a podcast of my own. I have a couple shows on YouTube as well, but we need to definitely get together. Like I said, I have this is about a 5-year ordeal.
Yeah.
A lot of brothers don't have $100,000.
Put your since you don't have a wrench, but put your link in the back chat so I can post it.
Okay. A lot of brothers don't have $100,000, right? But I have it. I have at this point, a lot of knowledge, and I have 5 years worth of files that I would allow anybody to review. Any sort of issue. I went through just about every sort of counseling, the 730 evaluation, child custody, recommending counseling. I have a complete file dossier that I would allow anybody to review to prepare for this. A lot of brothers walk away from it because they simply, don't have the money.
Right. Well, I'm curious about this. If there was something you wish you knew then when this first started that you know now, what would it be?
You got to know the lay of the land. A lot of people. That's a very interesting topic. I'm glad you asked that. The same thing happened to my brother. And dealing with CPS, he has 2 sets of children from 2 different women. A situation, he had his first child for a number of years, and the mother got frustrated, and they had an issue. CPS gets involved, and before this happens to you, you think that everybody watches television. You're going to get your day in court. You're going to get a jury. You believe in, the Constitution and due process. I actually thought my brother must have done something, right? But most people don't know the actual rules to family law and juvenile dependency court. Okay, first off, most people don't know that there's 3 in the United States jurisprudence. There's 3 classifications for evidentiary standards, and that's what it's called. In criminal court, this is what everybody is familiar with: beyond reasonable doubt. Right? That's 90%. Whatever is alleged about you or whatever is at issue, it has to be proven beyond a reasonable doubt, i.e. to a 90% certainty. Okay. The next level is the name escapes me, but it's 75%. Civil court. Yeah, the civil court. It's clear and convincing. 75%. Right? And family court has the most ridiculously low evidentiary standard. And it's not like we're not talking about something important, i.e. your children. The standard is 51%. Preponderance of evidence is what it means. More likely than not. That's what it means, right? Yeah. So I mean, I lost custody, I literally my wife had sole legal and physical custody for 1.5 years, right? Wow. And nothing was ever proven based on 100% allegations. I was a credentialed school teacher at the time. I was going through the background. I'm a parole agent at this point, but I was going through the background process to become a state peace officer.
Okay.
So it was, I said that to say that, my life at that time and going back 6 months to a year, I had enough documentary evidence that, these allegations are preposterous about the man that you're talking about. And given, like I mentioned, the evidentiary standard of preponderance of evidence, that essentially means that hearsay, superstition, how I feel, the judge, he's got on a green tie. I don't like the color green.
Oh wow.
Yeah, it's outlandish, and it verifies the fact that you can walk into court. 3 people can walk into court with the same scenario and walk out with 3 different rulings.
Right. One of the things you said that was really impactful though is you kind of mentioned how, and shout out to Khalid for the Cash App, and also shout out to Roger Report who's in here. Shout out to William Jones for the support. Roger, if you get a chance, you want to weigh in on this, you're welcome to come through. The link is in the chat, or I should say Roger Report. But one of the things you pointed out is that there were no repercussions for all of these accusations that had no merit. You disproved them in the court, you got them dismissed, but there were no repercussions to it looks like he dropped off. But there were no repercussions apparently. And so there's no incentive for her to stop doing it if there are no kind of repercussions. That in and of itself is a problem. We also got Marcus just up in here. Marcus, can you hear us? Marcus,
can you hear me?
Yeah,
can you hear me?
Yeah.
First of all, I'm here. I wanted to say thank you for just having this platform for Black men to, hear the stories that people are going through, because I'm literally going through all of this right now.
Okay.
Like right now I'm going through, I have a 10-month-year-old son.
Oh, wow.
And I'm going through the court system with his mother, whereas that she is basically using him as a means of ransom to get to me on numerous occasions.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not even just the court system, it's even the lawyers that I found out. Like I've been talking to lawyers from before my son was here to even now, trying to find a lawyer that's gonna fight for my cause. I've been trying to get custody of my son. Everybody just telling me the same thing. Like, there's no way you're gonna get custody. There's no way you're gonna get custody. It's to the point where right now I've got protective orders against her because she's been violent. I got protective orders against her family because they've been violent towards me. So to hear that it's other people going through this is just it's been really, really helpful for help me get through some of the stuff that I've been going through.
Wow.
It's detrimental to me to know that I still got to suck up some of the stuff that's going on in court because the laws are so vague in the state I'm in. The state I'm in is Maryland, and like you said, every state is different. All the laws in every state are different. So some of the things like in California where the parent that's domestically violent.
Marcus,
yes.
There's a lot of background noise. We can't hear you clearly.
Okay, is this a little bit better?
That's a lot better. Yeah.
Okay. I was looking at my state, and I think one of the videos you had put up, there was another man who was getting violently assaulted by his wife. It was a couple of weeks ago. He was in California, and in the state of California, if a parent is domestically violent, then that parent can't have custody of the child.
Okay.
Well, it's not that way in Maryland. It's not that way in the state of Maryland. I've got proof that she's been domestically violent, and she's actually admitted to it in court that she's been domestically violent towards me.
Okay.
And nothing has happened to her yet.
Okay, well, let me hold on. Let me welcome a few other people in here. We got Top Tier, we got Dallas D, and shout out to LAR Movement. What's up, man?
What's going on, Doc? BGS
doing,
Art. How y'all doing, everybody?
What's up, fam?
And have Dallas D speak up so we know who she is.
Hey, everybody.
Okay. All right. We just want to make sure we don't want any trolls, so we're trying to keep this channel clean. So
we also have Q Savage. So let's go ahead and get contributions from each. We got Lamont back in here, but let's go ahead and hear from LAR, and we'll just go down the road. Top Tier, Dallas D, and Q Savage. LAR, what you want to add to this, man?
I actually had to have this conversation with a coworker last week. And a lot of guys, you got to get prepared to play the game outside of the game. Because once you go down this road, you already know what you're dealing with the legal system. And it's not going to be fair. It's not going to be, you actually, to the legal part, you're going to have all of your evidence chronologically in order on a USB or in a file to keep the prices to a minimum. You can't keep going to these people. Their job is to quote unquote win the case, but they will string you along and take your money, if you're not really prepared. But more importantly, you got to get mentally prepared for all of the drama that goes around a custody battle. All of the allegations, all of the he hit me, he hit my family, he's a this, he's a that, I called the police and blah, 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 blah. You got to get mentally prepared for that part. You got to get yourself together for when you get discouraged and when you get depressed. And if you feel like you're making headway as far as the battle's going, and then there's, a bunch of, I forget, extensions when they turn it, you go on to court in June and they extend it to October.
That's called a contention.
You got to get prepared for that. Yeah, it's been a while, bro. I appreciate
I got you.
Thank you.
I got you.
You know, and people do that over and over and over again. If you're going in a positive direction, you will get pulled back. But you know, take well, I got to do it since I'm here publicly. So I told my coworker, I said, you know, there's a pair of Ray-Bans that hook to your cell phone, and they're glasses that actually have cameras in them. I said, you know, you probably do yourself a favor by buying them, and when you go over there, they could be shades or whatever. You know, hit the button and record, because once you pull your phone out, it's going to be a problem. So just keep the shades or the glasses on and have them record for you, so you don't have the extra issues, because you're going to need a file every time you go around. So you got to use this technology for your advantage. I'm going to leave it at that, Doc.
Okay. Appreciate that.
I would like to add to that. Yeah, they'll definitely record everything. That's one of the things that kind of saved me in a lot of instances. Like I have evidence of everything. And if you do not have any evidence, whatever she says is going to be basically believed as true.
Okay.
If I can add, if I add to what LAR, if I may, the part too that people have to keep an eye on is when the you know, that your ex wants to take you to court just because that accumulates expenses. And I think that's designed to make sure you quit because you can't afford it.
And to weigh it down.
Yeah, so they do that quite a bit.
Okay. Let me welcome Officer Charles. What's going on, man? How you doing?
I think Dallas D was up first.
No, I'm not. I'm just welcoming him up. But yeah, we definitely Dallas D. What's going on, man? We had I guess Top Tier dropped out. He says he has some sound issues. Maybe he'll come back up. Dallas D, you want to contribute to this?
Yeah, so a couple of things that I wanted to add. So we're talking about reform, but in my opinion, the entire system of child support is so corrupt and unconstitutional. Can it actually be reformed? And one of the issues I have with it is I agree with one of the gentlemen that we're talking about. There were no repercussions for false testimony, which is why one of the reasons I started being an activist for child support reform. I'm actually involved in a child support case, but as a woman, I have no kids. So a woman went to a court, told a judge that I had been harassing her. And the judge took her word for it. I never saw a day in court, didn't know anything about it until after the judgment actually came down, and my name is wrapped up in some filings. And I've never met this woman a day in my life. Literally have never met this woman a day in my life. But she was allowed to give false testimony without my side of the story, without my input. I found out later that she had actually been harassing me on social media, or stalking me on social media, I should say, and was digging up all this personal information about me. And again, I've never met this woman a day in my life. So that's just one of the issues, with there being no repercussions for false testimony. But a bigger issue is if we're not repealing or getting rid of the Bradley Amendment, any reform is pointless. Because for anyone who doesn't know what the Bradley Amendment is, it's the federal law that doesn't allow for any retroactive reductions in child support payments, regardless of the reason. So whether that reason is hospitalization, whether it's job loss, whether it's death, whether it's imprisonment, it doesn't matter. They can legally not reduce your child support payments. So you can have a situation where you have lost your job, you have been unemployed for a few months. During that time frame, you haven't been making those payments. You can actually sit up in a courtroom, listen to a judge can hear your story. A judge can say that, yes, I can declare that you were physically not able to make these payments during this time frame, but they will still lock you up. During that 90-day or however long they decide to throw you in jail for contempt of court, you're still racking up, your arrears is racking up, interest is racking up. And even if you die, you can have a life insurance policy. What a lot of people don't know is even with the will and testament, which is a legal and binding contract, if you have a child support debt, upon your death, you can have money assigned to your loved ones, whether you have a new wife, whether you're leaving it to another child you have in another relationship, or whatever the case may be. That state can come and take that away from your family, can take it away from your mother, can take it away from your kids, your current wife, because of a child support debt. And the Bradley Amendment is what allows that.
That's crazy.
So if we're not eliminating the Bradley amendment, none of it makes any sense, because you could be legally responsible. Your family could be legally responsible for this debt. And it's just a transfer of wealth to a population of people that don't understand how to generate wealth and don't make smart decisions with it.
Well, one thing that comes into clear vision is that, what we're all talking about is, they've created a international scam just to defraud people. It's just a transfer of wealth. This is all it is. They've made merchandise out of the lives of people. Okay, and the trip thing about it is, anybody that spent any time in family law court, one of the first things they want to bring up, and one of the first things that they mention is that, the court acts, quote unquote, in the best interest of children, right? Okay, is it in the best interest of the children, like in my case, to $100,000? That sounds like fortunately for my children, they both of their parents make pretty good money, so financially they're not going to skip a beat. But $100,000, divorce is the number 4 reason for bankruptcy in this country, right? So is it in a child's best interest to take their college fund, right, and give it to their attorneys so they can spend on their children?
Is that in the best interest of the state?
Exactly. And it hasn't been mentioned yet, but I don't know if anybody has heard of Title 4D of the Social Security Act. Anybody familiar with that?
Yeah, very famous.
So now we know why the game is being played, right?
Expound on that, please.
Title 4D is a section of the Social Security Act. States receive matching federal funds, I believe, like 66 to 75% on the dollar for every dollar that they spend in child support collection attempts. And the phraseology, you hear different things online about what it is, but that's what it is. It's quote unquote how much money they spend in the effort, i.e., they pay the person that's on the phone when you call child support, whatever they pay him to call you and harass you at your job, send you those dirty little emails, those nasty emails that they send. They pay 75% of his salary. Now, who would not open a business? Let me see by a show of hands. Who wouldn't open a business if the federal government was going to pay 75% of your doggone employment fees, or whatever employment expense, what you pay your employees? Who's not going to open that business?
Yeah, it's true.
Can I add to that?
Go ahead.
So can we talk about Title 4D without talking about it being a welfare recovery program? If welfare is a grant, since when did we pay grants back?
It was actually a shift to shift the welfare burden onto the father. That's what it's actually for. That's what child support, especially after the 1980s, is actually meant to do.
Well, and another thing too. Okay, everybody's talking about child support reform. Okay, I don't. In all honesty, I don't have a problem with the original intent for child support. Child support is only supposed to be for the state to being reimbursed for what they've spent on welfare. That is why child support was created.
Yes,
I don't have a problem with that.
Yeah.
I got a problem with that.
Well,
so the money is funded. The child support programs or the welfare benefits are funded through tax dollars. So what are you paying back again?
Well, I mean, it's a way for the state to recoup a bit.
What do you mean recoup? It's all tax dollars.
The thing is, go ahead.
Okay, I hear your point, right? That it was taken from the public, right? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, but then it was taken from the public and given to a private individual, right? What they're the original intent is that they're trying to get some of that money back into the public coffers, so it can then be spent for whatever reason. Probably some more fraud. To your point,
that was the original intent. It was the original intent. Yeah, it's been bastardized though.
Yeah, I mean it's been allowed to grow and include every case. And
the problem.
Go ahead.
I'm sorry. The problem that I have with that is if the debt is going to be paid back, it needs to be by the borrower. Because, and I'm going to tell you
Very
why.
good point. Very
As
good point.
long, and I'm gonna tell you why I feel like that. I understand that whole the financial needs of a child. I understand that it takes two to make them. I get all that. However, as long as abortion is legal, so when Roe v. Wade was decided on, a lot of the judges decided that the reason why abortion was going to be legal is because the government couldn't decide how a couple would determine how they use contraceptives. So contraceptives prevent pregnancy, correct? They don't come
Most
after the
time.
pregnancy. Their contraceptives are supposed to prevent pregnancy, but they allowed abortions to be considered as contraceptives. So when a woman, and for whatever reason, you can cry health benefits all you want, but only 7% of abortions have anything to do with health risk. So with all the abortions that have been had, for whatever reason, whether it's because she doesn't want to ruin her body, she's thinking about her career, she doesn't want to be a single mom, whatever the reason is, as long as a woman can walk into an abortion clinic and have an abortion, a man ought to be able to negate his same parental responsibilities, and
Yeah.
child support should never be forced as long as abortion is legal.
Yeah.
And not
That's
only that, not even abortion. Is if a woman can drop her baby off in a safe haven. So you're saying that once the child's here, someone has to be financially responsible. So once the child's here, whether he's paying child support or not, she has custody of the child. She decides at the age of 6 months old, she wants to drop the baby off at a safe haven. So now the state is paying for that child, no different than a state giving you welfare benefits at home. Why is that woman who dropped her baby off, who you have biological ties to, why is she not being put on child support?
Because number one,
that's facts. That's true.
Because number one, it's not what's written on law; it's what's enforced.
Good point too.
Yeah.
So when you have situations like that, how many women have the advantage? Remember, because 50% of that man's genetic material that makes up that kid, he's the one who decides if he or she comes into the world.
Yeah.
This is what happens when you have the Victorian era thinking that these women are so dainty, but yet they're taking provider jobs, but they get mad when they pay alimony.
Well, under the Victorian era, right? Okay, the only people who actually do child support were what? Married women. If you had illegitimate children, guess what you did not get?
Custody.
You did not get child support.
Yeah.
He was not legally responsible for that child. They
Well,
changed it in 1970. I think they changed it in
might have to mute their mic. Somebody might have to.
Somebody got the YouTube on.
So in other words, they changed that child support in a lot of these laws in like 1971 because it was actually corrected by a social worker when I said illegitimate children. Okay, and she said no, that term was done away with in the 1970s because out of wedlock children are not considered illegitimate or illegal anymore.
And that's what it really basically gave women the same rights as wives. You got to remember that. I'm going to say it again for the Negroes in the back. You basically gave unmarried women the same rights as wives.
Right. Yeah. Right. And then eliminated the shotgun marriage.
Yeah. If you wanted a husband, the quickest way was to get pregnant and tell your daddy, and next thing you know, he got his Mossberg and the preacher. But yet, you got to remember, it's very hard to dance with the devil and you think you're going to change him, but you're the one who changes. It's the same mindset of drug enforcement. Name all the alphabets that deal with drug enforcement. DEA, ATF, FBI, and others.
Okay.
And it's the same thing. Like if they eliminated or dramatically slowed drugs, what would happen? You would basically not have a need for the agencies, correct? How you going to stop the state when they've been digging in their pockets, which I think is always funny when chicks go to child support and they get a portion of child support because a lot of that money the state's going to tax. And it's funny because if you actually look at the studies, fathers pay more than what they get on child support, almost 5 times more. But this is
Can
what
I
when you have greed and you use a woman's nature against them.
can I touch on the money part? I'm sorry.
Go ahead. No, go ahead.
Everybody who's dealt with this knows that the state's gonna get paid, the mom's gonna get paid, the kid's gonna get screwed, the dad's gonna get screwed. But ultimately, you're creating a situation where, as a norm, nobody will be financially secure after that quote unquote 18 to 21 years is up.
Oh yeah.
So you got, the kids wonder why, most of these kids are not going to have a college fund. Most of these recipients of child support have got accustomed to a lifestyle that when the child support and even the tax breaks end, they fall into poverty. So this is why you see sometimes a lot of women having kids later, because that's their jump start if they haven't had kids already. And you see the guys having to go through, working from their 40s to their 60s and 70s just to actually achieve the lifestyle that was getting sucked from them during the whole process.
Yep.
Because you take a lot of losses. So people got to realize what people are taking advantage of, it's just not the state, it's business and educational systems. It's big business to have families split up, to have the money split up, because part of our community in particular, part of our dollar not circulating is because our dollar is going to everybody else in separate households.
Wow. Now we have Sir Pookie's prestigious training, and we have Top Tier back in here. The main subject we're covering is family court reform, and we're talking specifically about the new addition to the black male political agenda, which suggests that 1, 50-50 custody should eliminate child support, and 2, the formula used to determine child support amounts still operates on the paradigm of women not working, so that being updated. And you can cover other things, but that's the main point. I want to get Top Tier, who was in a little earlier. I think he had some mic trouble. I wanted to get his contribution, and then Sir Pookie. So go ahead, Top Tier.
Yes. Hi, everybody. How is everyone doing?
Good.
Yeah, no, with regards to adjustment, I think there's some serious need. I literally 5 hours ago just left the courthouse dealing with this stuff, presented all the information over the last 10 years, come to find out. My son's mom, just how Ms. D was stating, was working as an engineer. I've overpaid. 140K, so to speak, presented to the judge, and he flat out told me, "Oh, I can't go retro." But there's legal language under penalty of perjury, which I have to follow. If any party obtains a job or gets an increase, you must notify Child Support Services. I brought this up. He said, "Well, it wasn't brought in front of the courts here, so," and it was. I went through DCSS, Department of Child Support Services, to try and rectify this. Back and forth, 2014, 2016. Heck, they even sent me a check in the mail of, "Oh, here's an extra $3,000 you overpaid." But they didn't look at the core of it, where mother is working, like I've been saying. It's kind of like I'm a second-class parent, so to speak, with regards to the whole thing. And I truly believe, which is what I was hoping for today, to get retribution with regards to going back, and 50-50 going forward. So I'm still in the fight to try and get this 50-50 equally, because that would create a level playing field, almost a level playing field, with regards to that. But yeah, that's my piece on it. So,
wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
A little bit of one little snippet is, so in essence, when I went to tell the judge, he's, "Oh, by the way, it increased." I'm like, "What?" "I'm presenting you her paycheck stubs. Here's actual proof. Before 10 years ago, said she had zero income. Here she is making $10,000 a month."
What?
Whatever math he put it into in the Diesel Master, it went from $915 a month to $1,148 a month for her. My other son, I pay $1,100 a month. His mother, $1,000 in spousal support, which I'm gonna try and end this May. So I have in the next 2 weeks, I would have 5 court hearings, and I'm trying to nip all this in the butt amongst all of it. And this is keep in mind, I'm an electrical and computer engineer. I worked my ass butt off to get to the level where I'm at, but from the age of 25 till now 39, I've been living like a broke college student, so to speak, just to get by, you know, and I'm doing the best I can with my son when he's here. My other son, I'm fighting to get him, but it's like you literally got to jump through hoops like it's an act at the circus, you know? So, but yeah, that's my piece.
Wow. Appreciate that, man. Let me get Sir Pookie's contributions, and then I'll open it up for anyone that wants to respond to anything we've heard or anything else. Sir Pookie, can you hear us?
Okay, I can hear everybody. I just wanted to say, can everybody hear me before I begin?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay, I just wanted to say, let me show my appreciation to you, Dr. T. Hasan Johnson, for allowing me up on this panel. I greatly appreciate it. I mean, we got the Master T-shirt up here, BGS, Charles Faulkner, Style of Profiler, LAR Movement, Art New Style, Mister with the pens and the scribing and all the different little crayons and stuff like that. Marcus, we got a whole bunch of people on here with a whole bunch of different perspectives. And it's very unfortunate that you're going through that top tier. I mean, it's the fact that just a couple of kids, 1 to 2 kids, can put somebody who is so established, so experienced, so how you say, just so professional. Someone who is in a career field, someone who is deep in STEM with a specified major. I mean, you have years in school. I'm sure you still have debt to pay off. And the fact that just trying to continue your legacy can potentially put you all the way back down to a level comparable to peers of mine is just evident and basically clear in showing the flaws of the system that we live in.
Now, is there any? Have you gone through this at all, Sir Pookie? Is this something you've experienced?
No, I'm a college student. No, not yet. Oh, well, not yet. I'll be with how things are going now, though. Dr. T. Hasan, you probably expect something in about 2-3 years. I'll let you know.
God damn.
Can I add to what you just said about that?
Pookie's a comedian.
Go ahead.
A lot. This was a lot of young men have. I feel for a lot of brothers because of this. It's funny that your mothers don't prepare y'all for this to happen to y'all, but your mothers planned it out to do it, and they know their nieces or daughters are going to do the same. That's an actual backup plan that's like passed down from the sisterhood. Let's just put it like that. So it's unfortunate to say that there's so many young men who may have an issue with their father or issues with their father because of this process and turn right around and at the age from 18 to 25 become their father and have to have a mental breakdown.
Yeah. No, that's actually, BGS knows this because this is what brought me to YouTube. He read one of the articles that I wrote on my blog, and I was really hoping people would read. And he was trying to teach me a lesson, that reading is not really what people are doing these days. So that said, the article itself was about that very thing, LAR. It was really trying to get, especially Generation X sons to understand, because we were the generation in hip hop most pissed off about our fathers being absent. But when we reached adulthood and went through the same things, especially in regard to family court, we were able to identify with our fathers for the first time in our lives, in a way that we hadn't before. And if anything, the rates of marriage continue to go down. Right. So we could identify with our fathers for the first time, and many of us really didn't. But the point is, this is a system that we're in, and it's targeting men, and most particularly Black men, in a way that you can't easily get around. So we're going to have to really begin to understand these dynamics and how they played out with fathers, even grandfathers, depending on your age.
Well, you got to look at
our life experience.
You got to look at it where A lot of boys out there hate their fathers only because they hear one side of the story.
Yep, true that. Preach.
Yes.
One thing about it is that as soon as they confront their mothers will. It's like the lady who was on Yala Van Zandt. You should have fought harder. No, but you made my life a living hell off of the whims, off of lies, off of mistruths.
You can have to fight it all.
And see, I never had to go get custody for my son. I walked in the house when I found out she wasn't taking him to school. And I said, okay, give me all his clothes because I bought him. Give me the boy. Go about your goddamn life. And I'm like, and I feel for brothers because a lot of times, let's just face it, your mother's raised you to be a simp, a total all-around simp.
Emotional.
You're just a buck. Yep. The only thing you're supposed to be is an extra check in the house. That's why many a times she don't even want you to have another woman because there's resources going out the house. You're in a culture where, I'm just going to say it bluntly, they don't respect freaking masculinity. They don't respect men. But yet, they will blame men for all the bad things that happen. I'm going to tell you something. I was being interviewed about my new business. And me and a guy, we agreed on a lot of stuff, red pill stuff, manosphere stuff. But he's like, well, you got to hold a lot of these brothers accountable. I said, why? Why do I need to hold men accountable that are already going to be held accountable, whether they are there or not? See, nobody ever blames the mother who lived waywardly, who was a crackhead, who allowed her children to be in all kinds of damnation when it comes to being in a community. We'll give, she tried the hardest she could do. But you could go out of state looking for work. And you're a deadbeat. If you're not there, you're a deadbeat. If you are there, you're not doing enough. Pick a struggle. And you wonder why men said, bump that, the hell with marriage. What do we get out of it? And I'm going to just end off with this one. Unless somebody else gets the floor. If you deal with somebody, always get compensated. Because you're gonna pay it anyway. But go ahead.
Yeah, I had to ask the brothers. Y'all hear me?
Yeah.
Well, I noticed this topic is spoken about in different panels, and there's always one or two or a few brothers that try to express that this affects all men equal. It's not just black men, but from where I'm standing from, I still think it affects us the most out of anyone. Can anybody speak on that? Because
well, I'm involved in the fathers' rights movement as well. We had talked about, the Indian Child Welfare Act and how, they were able to leverage their ethnicity and get some concessions from the government. It's not only a black man issue, bro. Is in a short review of the internet will show you that white men are getting clobbered as well. Now, I believe that, in my experience with family law court here in Southern California, I have to deal with issues that a white man doesn't have to deal with, i.e., my black wife essentially called me an angry black man in court. Right.
So what I was saying earlier was that I'm not saying that I didn't say that it was only black men. Mm-hmm. I'm saying I think this affects black men the most.
Quantify the most? What do you mean by the most?
We go to jail. Since we're the poorest, we go to jail the most. We're incarcerated the most.
I would say
as
that
a percentage.
Okay. In aggregate, I would agree with it. It's if you're, because like in my case, not everybody has, for instance, right? I'm a state peace officer. It's, I'm union represented. I get a free day off work every month. Every 30 days, I get 8 hours to miss work, personal time. Not everybody has that. if you're going to court every month, I know stories of people who lost their job. You know, your job eventually going to tell you you can't miss another day work going to court, bro. You got to be at work. You know, so you know it is certainly a black thing, but I think that, you know, it's necessarily, you know, a financial thing too. What type of, you know, what type of job you have, what, you know, teachers, people with union jobs that allow, you know, you got blue sick time.
This is the part that is getting talked over. No offense.
Go for it.
Because this is where it's lost. Who's the most financially disenfranchised people in America?
It's us.
Who's the least educated?
Black Americans.
Black men.
Black men.
So it's gonna affect us more. Let's excuse my language. Let's not bullshit each other and insult each other's intelligence when we all know good and goddamn well that this affects black men like no other. How can a black man establish wealth to their child if they're being brought up on court appointed extortion? I'm going to say it again: court appointed extortion.
That's what it is. That's what it is.
Because I've always said this, even as being a police officer for so many years. How in the hell can you say that this woman needs your money when you obviously got the money the child needs in the first place? Cut out the middleman and the BS and give the damn child to the person who can produce the most. But
human trafficking.
That was the case, you know, pre-1970, that the child was typically the possession of the father.
But you know what really happens is because they don't want to give the fathers the children for two reasons. One, the fathers are going to do a better job. Facts. And then two, everybody's going to look at the mothers and said, wait a minute, you literally raised our children in hell. And they would, and men in totality would turn their damn back on them.
Well, I mean, there's no bigger argument than the state of the world today, you know, since 1970. So feminism has been in control for a generation. There's no bigger argument than the state of the world today that this process, this system, given primary custody to women, does not work. There's no bigger argument than the present state of the world.
Lower education rates and obesity state.
Name it. The list is long.
Home defense down.
High school graduation, likelihood that you'll be in prison, likelihood that you'll be in a gang, likelihood that you'll eventually divorce your damn self.
Or have an illegitimate child.
Things in cinema. Things in cinema, the movies that are coming out in cinema become progressively worse due to the progressive movements and script alterations and unnecessary adjustments. Transgender and, you know, alphabet communities being allowed into athletic events with women has backfired, even though women were primarily the sources that advocated for it in the first place.
I enjoy that though. That to me, that's I hope.
But that's just a few things.
Wait. Hold on. But Dallas was gonna bring in something. I wanted to hear what that was.
I wanted to backpedal on something LAR said a few comments ago when he brought up the child tax credits. That's another thing that we need to consider. It needs to be mandatory that those child tax credits are both parents take alternating years, because she's getting the tax credits for what your withholdings are paying for.
That would be fair.
Yeah, it needs to be mandatory alternating child tax credit years.
You know, ultimately,
that should be in there.
You know, ultimately, what the state needed to do.
Hold on, before we delve into that. Let me see. I need one more spot. There's someone I want to bring in to add to this conversation. So if there's anyone up here that's, you know, pretty much said what they plan to say and is willing to bow out, let me know. Also, if
I'll take a bow out.
Okay,
Mark.
Because I'll say.
What were you going to say, LAR?
I said I'll say something quick and I'll get out. It doesn't, you know.
No, hold on. But Marcus is already volunteered, so I appreciate that, Marcus, and thanks for being on the show, good brother. That said, if you're not actively speaking, you know, mute your mic because there's a lot of background noise. We also have Sleeping Olmec, and we also have Adam Migtow that have joined the discussion. So I want to let LAR make his point, and then we'll go Sleeping Olmec and then Adam Migtow. Go ahead, LAR.
speaking to the education part, when I was born, my mother got pregnant. She had to get out of high school. People seem to forget, and that was 79. People forget when it comes to the education part. If a female gets pregnant, she goes to college still. If a guy gets a female pregnant, he's probably got to drop out to provide. So part of this educational gap is also pregnancy. Okay. Because it's rare to support a son who had a kid in college. It's normal to support a daughter who got pregnant in college.
Okay. Sleeping on Mick, can you hear us?
Yes, I do hear you. I hear you. Okay. How is everyone today?
We're good, man. Go ahead and chime in on this.
Okay. Well, I mean, my perspective, I think it's kind of unique, was the fact that I've been the non-custodial parent, I've been the custodial parent, and I've also been the stepfather. And so I've seen different angles of how this child support stuff is working out. And I can, well, at least in my case, and my friends I know, it's definitely, if you're the non-custodial parent, the Black male, you are getting screwed over. I mean, like to the point where I was getting my wages just off something my ex-wife would say. But then I turn around, and when I'm the custodial parent, never received any dime of child support from her, then all of a sudden they decide to just close my case because there was a lack of activity, i.e. her not paying child support. They just closed my case.
Wow. You're borging out. Sleeping on Mick, you're borging out.
Is that better?
You're still borging a little bit.
Oh, okay.
I'm gonna give you a minute. I'm gonna give you a minute to try and reacclimate. Adam, why don't you contribute to this? Adam MGTOW, can you hear us?
Hey, how's it going? Sorry, I just had to pull over. How's everything going?
Oh, good. Yeah, go ahead and chime in on this. What do you think?
Yeah, I think it's from what I've witnessed, because I work with a lot of social workers. I've worked in the jails. I've worked with the child protection at the state level and things like that, and and family courts on a regular basis, and how they more so in the background. I speak to individuals who are in court often, and one thing I've noticed is just how obvious the bias is, and everybody knows about the bias, but they just kind of accept it because it's the norm, right? And so when the man is being vindictive, for example, calling in excessive cases, essentially what amounts to vexatious litigation, and causes a woman to lose her job, even though she's got custody, she's got a new job, she's gone through these programs and services, right? They're like, hey, I've even heard social workers say, hey, this is ridiculous. Like, he knows she got a new job. Why would he put all this and demand she be in court this date? Or why would he set up a visit for this time? And he knows she has a new job. So they understand that. But when it's the reverse, when the man is the subject of, things that are purposely vindictive, right? It's just, well, that's what it is. Should have kept his pants up, right?
Right.
It's that type of mentality. And when it comes to even the judges, these judges just have arbitrary power to just rule. There's no type of oversight committee or even any type of bias review board, right? I mean, we have EEO, we have all types of programs for pretty much everything else. Almost everything else, when it comes to government, they have people who are compliance officers, people who make sure that bias is not in the system, people you can call to make sure if there's bias, you can report it here. But for the family court, there is nothing, right? If you're being discriminated against because you're a man, which is pretty much most of these cases, who are you going to call? Right? I mean, there's non-for-profits and there's others who are doing it, but that's not government backed, right? That's not policy, that's not practice. Right. And so, even a lot of the social workers, I was reading in one of the textbooks, a friend of mine is getting her master's degree in social work, and I was reading through one of the textbooks, and one of the textbooks had it said how to conduct a feminist study as one of the chapters. So obviously my curiosity was piqued. So I had to just go to steal that book from her and take a look at that. And there's training that's in text, just teaching how to look at things from a feminist perspective. And so you get people who become, licensed master social workers, healthcare clinicians, judges, attorneys in family court that have this type of inherent bias built in, and the results speak for themselves. So in my opinion, for there to be any substantive reform, we have to have the policy, which is 50-50 custody, the right for a man to maintain a similar lifestyle that he had prior to this event, right? He shouldn't have to be homeless to pay child support if he had a home before, right? But on top of that, there has to be an extensive effort to retrain all these people, who are social workers, who are attorneys, who are family court judges. And to be honest, I think there must be a bias review board, or committee that, if a man has a question about it, it's not just an appeal, but he can report to that committee and they can review for bias in his case, because it's blatant at this point.
Well, if I could just piggyback a little bit on what Adam was talking about. One easy fix to family law would be, removing, domestic violence and child abuse. Those are criminal allegations. Okay. Shouldn't that be adjudicated in criminal court? And Adam had talked about a review board, or, some sort of a civilian or independent oversight. That's the independent discretion of the district attorney. Okay, the district attorney is already aware of the foolishness that goes on in family court. Wow. The rate at which domestic violence, the rate at which domestic violence allegations are convictions in criminal court is only 10%. Because in criminal court you got to prove it.
And that's why one thing I want to.
You got to look at it. The district. The state's attorney, district attorney, whatever the hell y'all call it, wherever you're from. See, here's the mess up. Child support's civil.
Correct.
The court is civil. Domestic violence and child support abuse are criminal offenses. They're totally different.
Yes.
Correct.
See,
but hold on, brother. A family law judge does adjudicate over domestic violence and child abuse allegations.
Yes,
and that's my point. They're not in the same courthouse.
Well, one thing I wanted to mention is in New York State,
they actually separate them.
Oh, one at a time.
Sorry, guys.
Go ahead, CEO.
They separate those courts. So it might be the umbrella of family court, but really you have the criminal and you have the civil, which are totally separated.
Hold on a second, brother. I'm in California. In California, okay, an allegation of either child abuse or domestic violence can be alleged in family law court, and you can't. And the family law court judge can essentially adjudicate a punishment in family law court. Now, those punishments are only civil. She can't dole out jail time for it. But they will cite the California Penal Code, right? My point for saying what I said is that's not her jurisdiction. It should not be the jurisdiction. We agree, it sounds like, on that point. That should not be the jurisdiction of a family law court judge. My point is that all criminal matters, criminal allegations, child abuse, domestic violence, that should be first adjudicated across the street in real court. Okay.
Now, to tell you the real problem is, one, California's stupid. We already know California laws.
California kind of. Hold on. California kind of sets the trend, if you will, a lot, and the rest of the country follows.
It's what happens in California because that shit does not happen in Maryland.
Okay.
If that was true, a lot of women wouldn't have their children because those are the main abusers.
Well, one thing I would say is in New York State in particular, pardon me, I'm sorry for cutting you. In New York State in particular, just to that point, they actually changed the law. There used to be some credible evidence. That used to be the standard, which is effectively hearsay, right? Somebody said or alleged that this woman abused the child, and another person alleged that happened. Therefore, it happened, right? And those investigations were not necessarily investigated. They were indicated, and then the woman had to take services and things like that in order to get her children. And so New York State, it took them years. They finally changed the law because they said it disproportionately affected women of color, right? And as a result, they changed the law to now a fair preponderance of the evidence, thus having a higher proof of evidence, right? And so now that's significantly reduced the amount of allegations of child abuse or the amount of women who are put through services unnecessarily, right? And I posit that same care should be given to men, particularly in domestic violence cases, right? Because if right now it's effectively civilly, it's effectively as far as the family courts are concerned, not criminal court, right? In criminal court, you still have beyond a reasonable doubt or clear and convincing evidence. But in family court, they still use some credible evidence. She alleged that it happened, right? And basically her allegation is significant enough for the judge to rule in her favor, right? They have a risk assessment that they do, right? And so if she alleges that you did that there's domestic violence in the house or abuse, that raises the risk assessment. And so now the agency that handles child custody, they don't want to be legally responsible for allowing a child to still be in the presence of someone who is allegedly physically violent. And so they will remove that, the judge will, they will make sure that he's not able to see that child in order to protect the child and things like that. And so these are things that, on one hand, you see them trying to avoid risk. But on the other hand, they err so much on the side of caution that they harm men in the process, and no one really seems to care. And so that has to change.
Here's the crazy part about it. If you look at, I'm gonna say this real quick, then I'm gonna give you the floor. If you look at it, if they really wanted to use that BS, right? And domestic violence, especially in the Black community, 67% of the women are the aggressor. But yet, majority, over 80% of the women have the children. Make sense. Because if they were really going by statistics, and if they were actually going by foundings, women wouldn't have their children. We got to understand, like you said earlier, there's an implicit bias when it comes to these courts. And then two, let's just say this, a lot of Black men are not taught to fight for their kids. Oh, you got to just for the children, just bear with it. You got to do it. We think if you don't pay child support, you're not a good father.
You preaching, brother.
Yeah. See, let's just talk about the ground fundamental psychological.
Well, it's what I call the literal deification of motherhood, right? Your mom can literally do no wrong. And we unfortunately find ourselves in the predicament to where some women use that as a sword, right? They abuse that power.
Yeah, and that's why I think as far as these agencies are concerned, a lot of them are starting to I know in particular in the field of social work, a lot of people are starting to move towards an evidence-based model. I keep asking people what the model was before, and no one can give me a straight answer because it wasn't it's not evidence-based. What the hell are you doing?
If you're using evidence now, what you've been doing for the past?
Yeah, that's like no one wants to answer the question, so I don't press them.
They probably tell you to leave, huh?
But now this is where.
Go ahead, man.
This is where brothers kind of mess up, in my opinion. We have a problem with acceptance. Now, for so many Black men to say America has systematic racism or systematic bias, it's like the family court is our blind spot. You already, if you believe that you don't have home field advantage in America as being a Black man, you should. It's the same. Family court is the same business model. I understand it when non-black men who, play the game that there's no systematic racism. You just gotta, when they get blindsided. Our women know exactly what's going on. It's us that like, I can't believe this is happening. Well, if you said as a black man, life is harder for you, why not assume it's going to be harder in that court? It's the same thing. You should prepare the same way.
That's an incredibly important point, because when I talked about earlier, when I showed you guys the black male political agenda, the very first point, and Adam MGTOW knows this, the very first point on that list was family court reform, and it is the longest list sent in by brothers who listen to this show on suggestions, addendums, so on and so forth. So we know on a practical level that the family court has a profound impact on black male life, but LAR is right. We still have a difficulty reconciling how important this is. So when I listen to nationalists, when I listen to, you name it, people talk about the issues that black folk face, and even black men, I seldom hear family court brought up. But if I get in a private conversation, I can pull a brother off stage who just gave a lecture on what the black community needs, and I'll have a hallway conversation. The first thing out of his mouth is what he's grappling with in his own family in regard to the family court. We don't reconcile those two things well. I completely agree with that.
Yeah, and it's sad because the one of the basic building blocks of any community is family, and which is often said. But then when we point about, well, what are we doing to reform, family court? What are we doing to actually build families or put families together? Then things kind of fall apart, or people redefine families. A lot of now the common saying, well, a family is basically a mother and children, or any people that live together is a family now, right? And so they redefine family unit so that a man isn't necessary. They'll say, well, this is an alternative family structure. Well, that alternative structure just doesn't work, right? Based on the evidence-based approach.
Yeah, BGS was spot on earlier, and my lawyer told me the same thing, because I was like, why? How are these women getting away with this? He just simply said they vote.
That's a very good point.
You say that
That's
again?
a very good point.
Because I'm gonna tell you what the black community really has a problem with, especially black men. We pray for leaders, and everybody else grooms their leaders. Who the hell do we have going out there on our behalf that we're putting money behind? Because God knows the stereotypes are true about black men being so damn cheap. We'll whine about money being taken out of our pockets, but we won't spend a quarter of that money or a fifth or half the money to get these laws overturned. You're going to have to start grooming people to be your political voices into these state senates and courtrooms.
Yeah,
and they keep these people in office.
I think now is a more opportune time than ever. I mean, we have more awareness than ever before. BGS had a video a few days ago. Over 25 different states have considered 50-50 custody as being the default, right? I mean, this is something that we can get the momentum behind our backs. Even this is maybe anecdotal, but even social workers I'm speaking to, these are women who are gone to college, effectively trained feminists, and even they, the younger ones, they understand that something's got to change, because using an evidence-based approach, looking at what's actually happening, like, this is unsustainable. This is not going to happen. It tends to be, from what I've observed, the people who are already, they've been in social work for 25 years, 30 years, this is a 30-year long career. They've kind of grown up with these, they haven't used an evidence-based approach. It was sort of a theoretical model where we, kind of like intersectionality, where theoretically, this group oppressed, that oppressed, you add two and two together, boom, right? And so they kind of use that type of approach to making programs and services. And so that was what they would used to do. And now they're policymakers. Now they're, signing the directives and things like that. And so, the younger generation of social workers, they have, based on their training now, I think we have a chance to really change things. We have the momentum. We have the backing of men. Politicians even know in their own local area that nothing's going to get better. if they keep things the way they are.
Well, but I
they're
do
not.
want I do want to add to this something Kalila said in the comments is profound. She talked about class action lawsuits, and it might be important for Black men to think along those lines, because in terms of voting, we're I would argue we're probably the most disenfranchised demographic as far as that, especially due to incarceration and the impact of incarceration on one's capacity to vote. Black men, and this is something, especially every 4 years in the presidential elections pop up again. I never hear people really talk about with the Black community. The Black vote becomes synonymous with Black women's political interests. But the reasoning behind that is so many Black men are disenfranchised from voting that we ourselves don't even talk about that. So if voting becomes instrumental to changing family court structure, and we know we're the most disenfranchised voters, that's going to hamper our options in that area. But when you factor in something like class action lawsuits, that might be another way that we could actually have, impose on this framework. So I want to add that. But as we're approaching the 2 hour, 16-minute mark, what I want to do is give each of you time for closing thoughts. And I'm going to work backward from what's on the screen. So we're going to start with Adam, LAR, Charles, top tier. We'll just go all the way in order, all the way back to Newstall. Your closing thoughts about this, anything else you want to add to the discussion. And remember, I'm going to put the link again in the chat for you guys to go to the Black Male Political Agenda. If there's anything you want to add, revise, add detail to, please go ahead and do that. But starting with Adam, what are any closing thoughts about this?
Well, I think I think we're on the right track. I think we have a lot of support. I think the work that we're doing here, the work that your show is doing, and your institute is powerful. It is providing the tools that people need to make reforms. I mean, individual. I mean, I share this information all the time with the people who are leading programs, training staff on how to work with young Black men and how to improve their lives. And so I think this platform is really powerful in that regard. In regard to custody, yes, 50-50 custody should be automatic. There should be a way for men who are members of a particular community to review and judges and even score these judges or remove them for their malpractice or inherent bias or biases that they have. And I think that the other aspects of the Black male political agenda should definitely be pushed forward. I don't think we're going to see as much resistance as we would have years ago, because I think the results or the impact of not listening to men is felt more than it's heard, and I think they've felt the hurt. On top of that, I think a lot of younger women, in the new training they're seeing and what they've seen with their own mothers, they don't want a life like that. And from what I've experienced in the field of social work, a lot of them, are using a more evidence-based model, and they know that what we're talking about here, this actually works. It actually works when it's done formally. When it's done informally, they've seen the best results in their cases. A lot of social workers now, and here, a lot of social workers get cases in many counties that'll go on for years. But the cases that they're able to actually turn over are the cases where the parents have 50-50 custody and that can be done in a week. No social worker wants to follow a family around for 10 years, right? So what we're doing works. And I think we'll get a lot of support if we really push for it.
Well, much appreciated, Adam. And Adam has contributed greatly to the list, particularly in regard to family court reform. So shout out to you, man. But go ahead and take yourself down. We're going to go to LAR, man. Any closing thoughts? And again, I want to thank everybody that's participated, especially today. I want to thank everybody that's been up here and who's dropped some information, some personal stories. I appreciate your transparency. But I'm particularly grateful to fellow content creators who are willing to come up and talk about this. And LAR is one of those brothers whose work I appreciate. If you're not watching his channel, LAR Movement, you're missing out. So, much appreciation for you coming up, man. What's your closing thoughts about this?
First, thanks for having me, Doc. For you men right here, you need to thank social media, your smartphone, The Me Too movement, BLM, and right now this trial going on with Johnny Depp and Amber Heard, because now it's at the point where the court used to be able to hide all of this stuff. Now all the lies and games, now they're part of the actual mainstream lexicon of what's going on. So it's not like it used to be. Women's word ain't as good as it used to be. So this is a prime opportunity to push for changes. Now, if we don't push for changes at this particular juncture, it's just out of straight laziness. Because the courts aren't believing these women, for one, and for two, since they're empowered and they're making more money, guess who? They want the money. So, like, if this little thing goes and with the Johnny Depp thing, if Amber Heard has to pay Johnny Depp money for what she did, that will trickle down to other courts. If they, we can get money out of them too, let's do it. But we can't be soft when it happens. So that's all I got to say. Thanks for having me.
Hey, man, much appreciation, man. Thanks a lot. The good CEO of Black Lion Security Firm. What's up?
Hey, you gotta say with your chest out, Doc.
See, is that the new business?
Oh yeah, today I already looked at my client for apartment buildings. So we're growing. I might have to do a GoFundMe to increase the currency for the training and supplies. So look out for that GoFundMe. But towards this, I think men need to start becoming what they need to be, and that's called ruthless. You got to be ruthless for yourself. You got to be ruthless for your child. If that woman plainly stated that she's your enemy, you take her for her word. No quarters given, no mercy needed. You go in there and you do everything you got to do for your children, because you know damn sure that money ain't going to go to their child. I never understood this to this day. People are paying thousands and thousands for every 2 weeks, but the child goes to regular public school, no tutor, no nothing, no college fund, no nothing. You're gonna have to strap your pants on, put your battle belts on, make sure that you got to go to to the battlefield, which is that courtroom. You can't look at her as, oh, she used to be so nice. Not anymore. If you're not going to do it, if you're not going to be man enough for you, at least be man enough for your children and their future. Woo! Always a pleasure.
All right. Much appreciated, Officer Charles. And y'all support his channel. Also, if you can support his new business, Black Lion Security Firm, please do so. Go ahead and put the information link in the chat for people, all right? Cool. Let's go to Top Tier. Your closing thoughts, sir. Top Tier, you still there? Okay. He was having some sound issues earlier. I'm gonna give him a minute, and we'll go to Lamont. Any closing thoughts, sir?
Yeah, thanks again, brother. You know, I want to collaborate with you. Like I said, I'm in Southern California. I came across your page just trying to do a search on, just Black and our African American fathers' rights entities. But, this is definitely something that, it's got to become priority number one in the Black community. I've heard reports that, a divorce, the reverberations of it is felt for the next 3 generations. So just take that into consideration. Your great grandchildren will feel what happened. Like in my case, that at the time we were in a home we bought it for $280. It's now listed at $800,000. So that's $600,000 of equity. Gone. And throw in the $200,000 that I already mentioned about what we spent, trying to litigate each other to death. So, you know, we as a community of Black men, you know, and the Black women who care, right? And that's something that I hear what MGTOW is saying, and you know, the father's rights, and I hear what everybody's saying, but you know, the Black man needs the Black woman, and vice versa. We cannot ever get to the point to where, you know, we become mortal enemies of each other. You know, but these Black women need to stop allowing themselves to be used as pawns and tools in this system, because that's really all it is. Because if you look at what you think is the actual intent and design of this system, is, you know, they take men out of the equation, right? Who's going to be left to fight just the total takeover at that point?
Right. Well, part of the challenge there, though, is, you know, if this is incentivized behavior, and I believe it is,
It is,
in regard to women, if it's incentivized behavior, and there's nothing to incentivize them to operate differently, especially in accordance with Black men. Inevitable question we have to ask is, what then do we do? I mean, this isn't even about, you know, demonizing Black women, going to war with this. It don't have nothing to do with that. It's just a basic practical question. If we know environmentally they're being socialized to engage us, and as you kind of alluded to, we're several generations into this. I mean, these women are learning from grandmothers how to manipulate, you know, family court in their interest. The question becomes, how do you, in a long-term manner, address something that they continue to be incentivized to do when we have very little recourse outside of the things we just started really, you know, talking about tonight? How else do we manage that?
It's a very good point. When you're on an airplane and they tell you who to put the mask on first, who they say put the mask on first?
Right. Exactly.
So
yeah,
that's unfortunately where we're at. The brother CEO had mentioned, you know, hitting beast mode or hitting the kill switch. In all honesty, you know, I come across, because I do divorce consulting, and a lot of people, you know, they make the tactical mistake of still thinking that they're married to the person that they met, you know, 10, 12 years ago. And you know, as soon as you turn the page on that, you might start getting some positive results.
Yeah. Well, much appreciated.
Hey, brother, I included my email address.
I got you.
Okay. All right.
I was
Reach
just
out to
going
me.
to say that.
Yeah.
I wrote down your email address. So I appreciate you reaching out.
All right.
I'll email you shortly.
Yes, sir.
All right, man.
You guys be blessed.
You too. Top tier. Can you hear us?
Yes. Can you hear me clearly now?
Now we can. Yeah. Closing
Hello?
thoughts, brother.
Okay.
Yeah. Can you hear us? Yeah.
Yes. Thank you, Mr. Hasan. Yes. Thank you for having me. I appreciate that. I'll keep mine very short. But I wanted to say to all those out there, brothers, fight the good fight. Our children need us. You know, do everything you can, hustle, do everything you can to make sure we're there for them. It seems like the walls may be closing in at times, but sometimes just pull yourselves up by the bootstraps, because in all honesty, things will eventually get better. I've been at it for a while. I see the light at the end of the tunnel, and it gradually is getting better. So all this to be motivational to say, our kids need us, fight that good fight. All right. Thank you, Mr. Hasan, for having me.
All right. Much appreciated. Thanks for dropping through. And you can go ahead and take yourself down. Brother Newstall.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
I appreciate you taking out of your time to drop in here. I know you're crazy busy. Please give us your final thoughts on this, especially after all you've been through and all you've learned dealing with it. You know, give us your thoughts on this.
It was a long battle for sure. And the way I talk, people would never think that I went through a lot of this stuff. You know, so all this stuff that people talk about in the space, it pretty much happened to me, like more than 10 years prior. But there's always a way to recover, but you have to do your research and you have to make sure that you associate with the right people. The suggestion I was going to mention as far as making some changes was to do away with that distance and time agreements, because those become very cloudy, and it still gives the woman a way to beef up the order.
When you
So
say distance and time,
yeah, when you have a long distance, like between, like, I stay in the South Bay Area, my ex stayed out in the Inland Empire. So the fact that she stayed a long distance, even if you had 50-50, you still had to pay out, pay some money, and probably even high depending on the income. So she knew that game. I think people need to research that part because it's not really popular, but that's a way to gouge your earnings.
Okay.
And I would say too, the reason why I definitely agreed um, with still paying while I had majority custody, and then I wouldn't, because basically the court, my lawyer, they came up with that number, and I was still upset, like, God, I still got to pay that much for 5 days a month. But I had to look at is that I purchased his manhood. I literally had to buy his manhood so he can grow up to be a man. And I stuck with that. And right now he's at Alabama State.
Okay.
Finish his first year successfully. And I think people need to pay attention to Ron DeSantis' fatherhood initiative, because I think they're going to do more changes on that, because I think that's going to be on the big stage.
Can you put some information on that, a link or something in the chat?
I'm on my phone, so I wouldn't be able to do that. But a lot of people in the chat are familiar with it, because I've been in different panels that's talked about it. But right now it looks kind of vague if you look at it. But I think once time goes by and he start running, I think that's gonna really get people's attention to at least get involved and have a stake into getting somebody in office. I'm not really endorsing one or the other. I'm center black, but but that's something to think about, But I appreciate you having me up here, man, and hopefully I'll be able to contribute to anything else you do.
Much appreciated, and people, make sure you go over to Art Nustel's channel. The reason I put the name tags up is I wanted you to, I wanted you guys to see how it's spelled. If you haven't been there, go ahead and look it up. Check him out on YouTube and support the channel.
Well, I appreciate it, fam. So we'll see you around.
All right, much appreciated. Thanks a lot, man.
All right. Peace out, brother.
Peace. So let me go ahead and fix this real quick. So, appreciate y'all coming out. This is an ongoing discussion. So as I usually say, make sure you add to it in the description. Excuse me, not the description, in the comments, after the show, if you have any other ideas to add to this. And again, I've put it up multiple times. I'll probably put it in the description, the link to the Black Male Political Agenda. So if you're coming in late, or if you haven't had a chance to go through them, see what you have to suggest, add to it, so on and so forth. If you have an argument against one of the points submitted, you can post that as well and articulate why it needs to be adjusted or removed or whatever. But we're trying to develop this as a living document that we can add to, so that when the question comes up, what are Black men's political interests? What are the things that Black men would like to see done, to improve the quality of life for Black men and boys, that we actually have a tangible set of ideas archived over time that can improve in the manner we're looking to improve our lives. So that said, I appreciate your participation. Y'all have a good night, and I will see y'all soon. Peace. I am here to tell you, brothers, we are not criminals by birth, perennial rapists, incapable intellects, man-children, sperm donors, child support wellsprings, success objects, walking phalluses, ATM machines, lottery tickets, unintelligent henchmen, valueless assassins, pro bono mercenaries, unpaid bodyguards, interchangeable stepfathers, child discipline proxies, unpaid repairmen, workhorses, emotional tampons, or any other socially accepted dehumanizing stereotype. We are thinkers, inventors, innovators, leaders, fathers, and men. Embrace your humanity, know your worth, and extend your time, attention, and resources only to those who genuinely respect you. And remember, your worth is not defined by meeting other people's narcissistic, selfish, and unrealistic needs. You define your worth. Peace.